Chapter 1444. On Earth, Xiaolei had held the ancient alloy box in his hand more than once, which was the world box. At that time, he never thought that he would one day experience so many things in the world inside the box. If the box was placed on a table, it would look like an antique ornament. But who would have thought that the world inside would be so big and boundless? Of course, this was only Charlotte's guess. He couldn't find any evidence to prove it, but he had always trusted his intuition, and that was, he was inside the world inside the box. Origin sowed life in this world, so there are all kinds of life forms in this world. Blue titans, blue dragons, fiends, void titans. Humans were only intruders, and so were the blue moon people. Even the Archimeans shouldn't exist here. Now this world was in chaos. Was this chaos what Origin wanted to see? What was its goal? You said you know everything about me, so you must know my experiences and the things I come into contact with. Charlotte quickly organized his thoughts. Then, what is the world box? I'm also looking for the answer. Charlotte was surprised. You're also looking for the answer? I'm not an omnipotent God, and I'm definitely not the creator. My understanding of this world is very limited, let alone the vast universe. Queen of Rest said, You think I'm powerful? Yes, I'm more powerful than you. You think I'm mysterious? Yes, I'm an unimaginable existence in your eyes. But I want to tell you that there are many more powerful and mysterious beings than me in this world, not to mention the entire universe. Charlotte couldn't help but smile bitterly. He was here to look for the answer, but Queen of Rest didn't seem to know much. Queen of Rest said, Every life form exists within the laws of the universe. The laws are very simple, but we can't grasp them. It's always evolving. We don't know its starting point, and we don't know its focus. Every intelligent species is exploring its mysteries, wanting to grasp the laws and catch up to its evolution. However, the brilliant civilizations disappeared one after another. No one could catch up to its evolution, and no one could grasp its rules. It seemed to have set a node for everything. Once it reached that node, death would come. It would not hesitate to destroy everything it created. I'm also looking for its laws, but I can't find them. You're not trying to find the answer from me, are you? I'm not trying to find the answer from you. I want you to find the answer. You are the chosen one, and only you can solve this mystery, said the Queen of Rest. Another chosen person. Was it you who chose me? Or was it Origin City who chose me? Or did the world box choose me? Both. Charlotte was stunned. What kind of answer was that? When you came to me, the first thing you saw was your mother abandoning you. But don't you find it strange that you don't have a father? Do you know who my father is? You don't have a father? You are a seed planted by Origin. Charlotte couldn't help but laugh out loud. The Queen of Rest continued. It's not that you don't believe it. You just don't want to accept it. Because you believe that you should have a father and a mother, because everyone in the world you were born and had a father and a mother. But the truth is the truth. Even if you don't accept it, you can't change that fact. Charlotte couldn't laugh anymore. The information he got from his father, Xia Changhe, was indeed like this. His mother was an unmarried girl who didn't even have a relationship. He didn't have a father. After finding out about his birth, he had thought about why he didn't have a father and where he came from more than once. Unfortunately, he couldn't find the answer. And now, the Queen of Rest had given him the answer. The mystery of his birth was finally solved, but he still couldn't accept it. You said that Origin created me. Charlotte was silent for a while before asking, Why did it do that? The Queen of Rest sighed. The reason is very complicated. I don't know either, but there's one thing I'm sure of. You're the chosen 1 inch. All right, I believe you. But if Origin created me, why didn't it make me stronger? When I was young, I was weak and sickly. The doctors in the hospital even said that I wouldn't survive. Why is that? If I'm a chosen one, carrying an important mission, then shouldn't I be strong and perfect for birth? The Queen of Rest smiled. Do you think you're not human in any way? Charlotte was stunned for a moment. What are you trying to say? In fact, as soon as the Queen of Rest appeared, he had tried to capture her thoughts with the energy field of the brand, but he couldn't capture anything. The Queen of Rest said, Origin sowed life. It created a real human. You will get sick. You will suffer. Only after experiencing that will you understand the definition of a human and where the path of human evolution lies. It chose you. It created you. That's what it should do. Once you're born, how you develop, how you evolve, that's your path. It can't control it. The rules of the universe are extremely powerful. Even it can't change anything. It can't jump out of the rules and mold a newborn into a perfect and powerful God. The Queen of Rest's words made Charlotte understand something, but he was still confused. But he wasn't surprised. In a vast and boundless universe, he was a tiny existence. Even the Queen of Rest didn't know about the rules of the universe. How could he know? How could he guess why he was born? You've always suspected the identity of your chosen one. You've always been looking for the answer. But isn't the answer in you? Origin created you and brought you to this world. Isn't that proof? Charlotte had always suspected the identity of his chosen one. He had always been looking for the answer. Now that the Queen of Rest had pointed it out, the fog in his heart had quietly dispersed. I think I've solved the confusion in your heart. Don't you humans have a saying? The onlooker sees the game more clearly than the onlooker. Some truths have always been around you, but you've ignored their existence. The Queen of Rest smiled. Do you have any more questions? Charlotte thought for a bit and said, I found a crystal skull on Earth. I also found a crystal hand in the Forest of Rest. I'm sure they came from the same body. They both have mysterious and powerful powers. Can you tell me whose bones they belong to? I learned about the crystal skull from your memory. It's very mysterious, but I don't know whose bones it belongs to. Charlotte was surprised. I found that crystal hand in the Forest of Rest. You're the ruler of the Forest of Rest. How could you not know where it came from? I really don't know. I can only control where the roots spread, but I can be sure that the place where you found the crystal hand didn't have any roots at this point. The Queen of Rest's eyes moved to the equipment bag on Charlotte's back. The crystal hand you mentioned is in your bag right now. Charlotte was a bit surprised. You don't know? The Queen of Rest replied. I can't sense its existence. It doesn't seem to want me to find it. I'll show it to you. Maybe you'll get a hint, Charlotte said as he was about to take off his bag. No. The Queen of Rest stopped Charlotte. You don't need to show it to me. Why? There's no why. I'm not as curious as you humans, the Queen of Rest said. If it doesn't want me to find it, then it must have a reason. If I force myself to come into contact with it, I might end up making a powerful enemy. Charlotte didn't insist. All right, I'll find the answer to the crystal skull and crystal hand myself. I have one more question. Tell me the answer. Where is Origin right now? The Queen of Rest shook her head. I don't know. Charlotte tried asking again. You were also in Origin at the time, right? The Queen of Rest replied. I know how you came to this world. But let me tell you, the energy tree you saw in Origin wasn't me. There are no unique species. Furthermore, that one seems to be a male tree. Energy trees have genders. Xiaolei's heart was filled with surprise, but he was also very disappointed. The thing he wanted to find the most in this world was that stone city, because it was related to whether or not he could return to Earth. But even the Queen of Rest didn't know where it was. How could he find it? I know this is the question you want to know the answer to the most. But in my opinion, this question is unnecessary. Charlotte smiled bitterly. He didn't want to ask any more questions. I can feel the disappointment in your heart. But what I want to tell you is that you don't need to look for it. It chose you. It created you. You carry the mission it gave you. As long as you complete your mission, it will naturally appear. A glimmer of hope suddenly ignited in Xia Lei's heart. My mission? That is why I asked Green Sparrow to bring you here. The Queen of Rest's lips curled into a gentle smile. My goal is to tell you that your mission is to find a fragment of the box of the world. You know which one it is missing. Charlotte's heart shook. All along, everything he had experienced was related to the box of the world. That last fragment was his mission, his only mission. I've received some information. Your human Heavenly Jewel Academy seems to have a clue. You should go there to take a look. The Queen of Rest said. Once I leave here, I'll go to the Heavenly Jewel Academy. Let's end our meeting here. I will have Green Sparrow send you and your companions out of the Canyon of Origin. When you find the clue, we will meet again. The Queen of Rest said. Charlotte suddenly thought of something. I won't leave the Forest of Rest directly. There is an Ahemus Empire flying ship that crashed in the Forest of Rest. I want to find it. If I fix it, I would like you to open the energy field of the Forest of Rest and let it fly out. I can open the energy field of the Forest of Rest for you, but you have to be fast. The Queen of Rest said. Charlotte nodded. Chapter 1445. Queen of Rest disappeared. The darkness also disappeared. The world returned to normal. Charlotte found that he wasn't in the normal valley full of grass and flowers. He was at the end of the valley. In front of him was a series of majestic mountains. Each of them was at least 10,000 meters tall. He was as small as a pebble in front of these mountains. These mountains surrounded the end of the valley, forming an oval-shaped valley. And in the middle of the valley, there were spirit ores everywhere, as well as blue rocks. In the middle of a small valley surrounded by mountains, in a place surrounded by spirit ores stood a towering tree. It was at least 2 to 3 kilometers tall. Its branches were luxuriant. Its trunk was so big that it would require at least 100 people holding hands to surround it. Its canopy covered the entire small valley. Even a single leaf was bigger than an adult. The vines hanging down from the canopy were also very thick, thicker than an adult's waist. It was probably the largest and oldest tree in the Forest of Rest. It was Queen of Rest. It was now that Charlotte saw its true appearance. It wasn't an energy tree, nor was it a beautiful woman. The legendary spirit or mine at the center of the Forest of Rest was also here, but if it wasn't willing, who would be able to see it? Charlotte was supposed to turn around and leave, but instead, he walked into the small valley surrounded by mountains. On this trip, he actually solved a lot of mysteries that had been bothering him. But Hao Fong and Langer were still waiting for him outside. He couldn't just let them go back empty-handed, right? Not to mention, he had to feed Hao Fong right now. Not having a bit of spirit ores in his inventory wouldn't do. If he fed Hao Fong's spirit energy every time, that guy would get spoiled. Entering the valley, Charlotte walked straight toward the spirit or mine, asking while walking, "Esteemed Queen of Rest, I'm really sorry. I need some spirit ores. Can I just casually pick a bit?" Queen of Rest didn't answer. Charlotte smiled and said, I have to ask you such a small thing. I'm really sorry. I'll take that as a yes. I'll just casually pick a bit and leave." He walked in front of the spirit mine, and his eyes were filled with the sparkling and translucent spirit mine. Their purity was very high. Although there was no testing equipment, just by capturing the energy field of the branding power, one could get a rough result. They were all grade 2 or even above grade 2 spirit ores. Although there were not many grade 1 spirit ores, the quantity was still considerable. He had his eyes on a level 1 neckline. The guy was at least as big as a square head. If it was taken out, it would definitely be a super grade 1 spirit mine that would shock the entire world. He walked towards the rank 1 spirit ore and said with a smile, "You're the one. Let's leave this place." However, just as he was about to use his military knife to pry open the spirit ore, he suddenly felt a trace of alarm in his heart. Almost at the same time, the crystal skeletal hand in his equipment bag also trembled, releasing an interference energy field. He didn't see anything, nor did he receive any attack, but Charlotte didn't dare to be careless at all. He became vigilant. After the crystal hand bone trembled, he suddenly stepped on a blue rock and flew backwards. A white light flashed. A bone spear suddenly stabbed into the blue rock that Charlotte just stepped on. Boom! The blue rock exploded, directly shattered by the terrifying power of the bone spear. The blue rock fragments flew in all directions like cannonballs, but the fragments that flew towards the Queen of Rest all hovered in the air, then slowly fell down. The scene was as if an invisible parachute had opened up on each of the blue rock fragments. It was very strange. A voice suddenly came from above, using a very strange language. Charlotte had never heard it before, but the combination of his branding power and his brain was a universal translator. He only needed to use the branding power to capture the brain waves in the voice, and his brain would translate the brain waves of the other party into information that he could understand. The voice that suddenly spoke was, "Human, get out of here." Xiaolei raised his head and saw a strange creature at first glance. It wasn't very big, only a bit smaller than a human. It was blue and covered with smooth, silky fur. Its head was very similar to the head of a Scottish fold, with round blue eyes, a long beard at the corner of its mouth, and its ears stood upright on both sides of its head. It looked very cute, very cute. But this image was changed by the pair of bat-like wings on its back. That pair of wings added a lot of strange and terrifying aura to it. In all fairness, when Charlotte first saw it, he didn't feel that it was very fierce at all. On the contrary, he felt that it was very cute. But it was this cute winged Scottish fold that almost stabbed him to death with a spear just now. Charlotte had never seen this kind of creature, but he already thought of the most powerful beast in the Anchi forest. The rock spirit. Was the winged Scottish fold, hanging upside down on the cliff, a rock spirit? Charlotte wasn't sure, and he wasn't sure. But one thing he was very sure of was that if the huge Lontan fought with the cute Scottish fold in front of him, the one who would lose would definitely be Lontan. He didn't make such a judgment casually. He made such a judgment based on the evidence. The Scottish fold hanging on the cliff was at least 500 meters away from him, but it actually used its claws to throw a bone spear that weighed dozens of kilograms at him, shattering a rock. How could such strength be described with a word? Terrifying? And that wasn't the only reason he made this judgment. More importantly, it used a bone spear, and the craftsmanship was quite good. This meant that it could make tools, and this alone had already surpassed the other beasts. Moreover, it could fly. If it attacked Lontan with its bone spear in the air, Lontan would probably be beaten up. Whoosh! The winged Scottish fold suddenly ejected from a cliff. At that moment, it was as if a cannonball had suddenly been fired from a cliff. After ejecting from the rock, it opened its wings, and its chubby body instantly hovered in the air. Even a real bat couldn't fly like this. You look good. If I wash you and sprinkle some pepper on you, it should be delicious. The winged Scottish fold said sarcastically on top of Charlotte's head. Charlotte wasn't nervous at all. Even if this little guy in front of him was the most powerful beast in the Forest of Rest, he wasn't afraid of it at all. Putting aside the fact that his own strength had increased by a lot, just the fact that he was standing under the crown of the Queen of Rest tree, he wasn't worried at all that this guy in front of him would cause him a lot of trouble. Charlotte smiled and sent his message to the Scottish fold. We are not enemies, and I don't taste good at all. Also, are you a rock spirit? You actually know such an important secret. Then all the more I want to eat you. The winged Scottish fold suddenly pounced on Charlotte from the air. This was probably the reason it found for itself to eat Charlotte. Whoosh! A vine suddenly swept across the crown of the tree, and the winged Scottish fold seemed to be suddenly imprisoned. With its speed, it wasn't difficult to dodge a vine at all, but it couldn't. Pah! The huge vine whipped its round belly. Meow! It actually let out a cat scream. In this strange scream, it was whipped higher into the sky, and then fell down like a stone from the sky. Pah! The fat Scottish folds but was facing up, its face was facing down, and its furry paws were holding its head. This was not the number one beast, rock spirit. It was simply a Scottish fold that didn't dare to face its angry owner. Queen of Rest's voice came. This rock spirit is called Sam. I let it wait for you here. If you take it out of the Forest of Rest, it will become a good helper for you. You want me to take it out? Charlotte was very surprised. He really didn't expect Queen of Rest to have such an arrangement. Queen of Rest's voice. There are not many rock spirits left. They are the elves of the Forest of Rest, and they have incredible abilities. It can help you fight, there's no doubt about that. But this guy is the most naughty child in its tribe. Its kind even publicly asked me to drive it out of the Forest of Rest. You do me a favor and take it out to train. Charlotte looked at the fat Scottish fold lying on the ground, and then looked at Queen of Rest's towering figure. He hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. Okay, I promise you, but will it listen to me? You know where I'm going, and you know what I'm going to do, and if it keeps giving me trouble, it'll interfere with my mission. Queen of Rest's voice. This I can't guarantee, but I believe you will find a way. Charlotte, Sam. Queen of Rest's voice was full of majesty. Quickly get up and see your master. Sam was still lying on the ground, raising his fat butt, and said unwillingly, "My mother, humans are not qualified to be my master." Charlotte's brain translated Sam's voice. Sam actually called Queen of Rest Mother, which surprised him. Whoosh! A vine fell from the sky and whipped Shanpu's butt. Meow! Sam let out a cat-like scream. Queen of Rest's voice. He carries a very important mission related to our survival and the fate of this world. You have to follow him out of the Forest of Rest and help him complete his mission. If you don't follow my order, then there will be no place for you in the Forest of Rest. Don't call me mother anymore. I don't have a naughty child like you. Mother, are you driving me away? Sam finally raised his head, his Scottish fold head, looking at Queen of Rest eagerly. Queen of Rest didn't talk to him anymore, but she raised a thicker and bigger vine. I will go. Sam gave in. That's right, my child, go to the outside world to train. You have to use your ability to help your master complete his mission. You must always remember that this is related to our survival. It is very important. Queen of Rest's voice. Mother, I will remember. I will be very, very good. While speaking, Sam squinted at Charlotte. His eyes were fierce and naughty. This look gave Charlotte a headache. Queen of Rest said that she would send him a helper, but in fact, she also wanted him to be a nanny in disguise. He had a hunch that this cute Scottish fold would cause him a lot of trouble. Queen of Rest's voice. In return, Sia, you can take some spirit oars. Charlotte said, Thank you, my dear Queen of Rest. Then he waved his hand. Hey, Sam, come and help me mine. Meow. Sam called and slowly walked to Charlotte. His eyes looked like he wanted to dig out Charlotte's claws. Chapter 1446. Kong Tan landed on top of a mountain. Hao Fong was discovered at the bottom of the cliff on the side of this mountain. The Ahemus Empire spaceship also landed in the valley below the cliff. I'm going back. After you're done with your business, find a way to leave. Kong Tan sent a message. All right. Thank you, Blue Sparrow. Charlotte sent a message of thanks to Blue Sparrow. He actually wanted Blue Sparrow to stay here and wait for him. If he couldn't repair the spaceship, she could send him out of the Forest of Rest. However, Blue Sparrow already said that she was going to leave, so he couldn't bring up such a request again. Go. Shanpu was very annoyed. Don't think that you're the only one who can fly. I can fly too. Blue Sparrow didn't bother with Shanpu. She took to the sky and flew far away in the blink of an eye. Stupid bird. Shanpu looked at the direction Blue Sparrow left and cursed. Stupid cunt. Hao Fong also cursed, but it was cursing Shanpu. After Charlotte met with Queen of Rest and brought this big cat back, it didn't like this cute but arrogant fellow at all. Longier, on the other hand, was full of fear towards Shanpu because it was the #1 beast in the Forest of Rest, Rock Spirit. Are you really going to bring this Rock Spirit to the outside world? Longier asked Charlotte. Charlotte replied, I don't want to bring this guy, but Queen of Rest asked me to bring out a train. I can't refuse. Not to mention I took so many spirit ores from her. There were indeed a lot of spirit ores. Charlotte's equipment was packed to the brim. Longier's equipment was packed to the brim. Even Hao Fong was carrying a big bag of spirit ores on his back. It wasn't easy to get to Canyon of Origin. How could he return empty-handed? The greedy Longier and the greedy Hao Fong. He definitely had to take care of their interests. Hao Fong, lead the way. Charlotte said, I'm coming, my beautiful boss. Hao Fong jogged over. Shanpu did not respond to Charlotte. It spread its wings and leaped off the cliff. Its voice was full of mockery. I can quickly complete the reconnaissance of the entire valley. By then, it would be a piece of cake for me to send a spaceship there, but I don't want to. Meow, meow, meow. Charlotte frowned. After leaving the Origin Canyon, this guy didn't communicate with him at all. Even with empty talks back, it still did whatever it wanted without any restrictions. It was very stubborn. Under such circumstances, if he opened his mouth to beg it, wouldn't it be arrogant to the heavens? Rock Spirit language, Motherf asterisk her. Hao Fong's mind was filled with the translated Ahemus text. He complained, Boss, that stupid fat cat is so arrogant. It's mocking us. Charlotte said, Don't worry about it. But how do you know the language of rock spirits? Hao Fong said, When I left the Origin Canyon, I updated my language library. Now I know all the languages on this planet. Wait, you said you updated your language library. How did you do that? Charlotte was curious. Hao Fong lifted a small boat and pointed to the sky. Of course, it's a wireless connection. I entered the Blue Moon's network. I downloaded a language pack from the Blue Moon's network, and it includes the language of rock spirits. You can hack into the Blue Moon's network. Charlotte was surprised. He had a few ideas in his mind. Hao Fong said, "My beautiful boss, I know what you're thinking, but I have to tell you that it's not easy. Ever since you activated me, I've only gotten one chance, and it took me a lot of effort to hack into a low-level network." Charlotte was a little disappointed. "If that's the case, we'll talk about it later. Now, take me to the spaceship. If we can't fix it, we'll have to walk out of the Forest of Rest. I don't have much hope for that. It's been more than 3,000 years. It's lucky that the spaceship hasn't rotted. My beautiful boss, please come with me. We have a long way to go." Hao Fong led the way, like an experienced tour guide. There was actually no way, so Hao Fong led Charlotte and Longer down a slope on the side of the cliff. Shan Pu flew around in the sky. It thought Charlotte would beg it, but Charlotte ignored it. It was awkward. The Queen of Rest had asked it to help Charlotte complete the mission, so it couldn't leave Charlotte. If it left Charlotte, the Queen of Rest would never forgive it, and it couldn't return to its tribe. There was only one way for it to go back, and that was to help Charlotte complete the mission. But with its current relationship with Charlotte, how could they work together to complete the mission? That stupid fat cat is flying around in the sky. Isn't he afraid that the strong wind will blow his spaceship off? Hao Fong scolded Shan Pu along the way, and the words that came out of its mouth were always the worst. Charlotte was speechless. He had never thought of forming a team in this world, but now he had a small team. The members of this small team included a greedy Archimedes woman, an ancient robot with a mouth full of vulgarities, and a very cute but extremely stubborn rock spirit. How to get these three members to get along? This problem was enough to give him a headache. Not to mention the problem of how to unite these three members and form a fighting force. When Hao Fong brought Charlotte and the Blue Moon people to the bottom of the valley, Shan Pu also flew down. Charlotte still ignored it. Hao Fong looked at Shan Pu, its square face filled with a friendly smile, but its mouth said, "You stupid C***, open your fur and see if your spaceship is still there." OF***CK. I remember now, you don't have a F***king spaceship, huh? Shan Pu looked at Hao Fong, then looked at Charlotte. "Hey, what is this stupid square talking about?" Hao Fong had downloaded the Blue Moon People's language pack, so it could understand Shan Pu, but Shan Pu couldn't understand Hao Fong's Archimedes language. Hao Fong was scolding Shan Pu, and Charlotte couldn't tell the truth. He smiled bitterly. "It's saying hello to you." Its name is Hao Fong. It's a very friendly robot, and it wants to be friends with you." How can a stupid robot be friends with me? Shan Pu spat on the ground. "This fat cat dared to call me a stupid C***NTF***CK. I'll tear its stinky mouth apart." Hao Fong looked fierce. "Ha ha ha." Longier laughed so hard that her breast shook. "Which one of you is the stupid C***NT? Stupid C***NT. Poisonous C***NT. Stupid C***NT robot. What are these two stupid C***NTs arguing about?" Shan Pu asked Charlotte. Charlotte felt a headache coming on. He ignored everyone and walked into the depths of the canyon alone. With such a team, what else could he expect? He also had a ridiculous thought in his mind. If he had to give his team a name, he felt that the name Stupid C***NT Team was the most realistic one. The valley was shrouded in a thick fog, and visibility was very low. The ground was wet, and a thick pile of dead branches and leaves were piled up. Charlotte's vision penetrated the thick fog, and at the same time, he was also exploring the situation on the ground to avoid the swamp traps. The width of the valley below the cliff was not wide, but it was very long. It was as if some god had used a sharp axe to split a gap in the earth, and no one knew when it would end. Exploring in such a place, even Charlotte could not speed up because he could not run quickly on the ground full of rotten leaves. Sean Poo flew to the top of the cliff again. It seemed to be disdainful to participate in Charlotte's adventure. Half a day passed just like that, and Charlotte had only walked more than 10 kilometers. After a while, Hao Fong suddenly pointed to a place and said, "It's that place. F***CK. That's where I was trampled by a few blue titans in turn." Xiaolei looked in the direction it was pointing, but all he saw was a ground covered with dead branches and leaves. There was nothing there. However, he was not surprised because more than 3,000 years had passed. Even if there were any traces back then, they would have long been covered up. "You were trampled here, so the spaceship should be nearby, right?" Charlotte said. "Yes, it's nearby," Hao Fong said. "I remember it very clearly. Let's look over there." Hao Fong walked to the front of the team and led Charlotte and Lan Ji in one direction. Roar! The roar of a ferocious beast suddenly came from the thick fog. F***CK. Hao Fong screamed and swooshed behind Charlotte. Lan Ji suddenly became nervous and said with a trembling voice, That's the voice of a blue titan." Charlotte said lightly, "It's just a blue titan. What are you nervous about?" Hao Fong was stunned for a moment and suddenly laughed out loud. "Yes. Boss, you used your fist to beat up a blue titan leader. What the F***CK is a blue titan?" Then it returned to the front of the team and shouted, "Stupid blue titan, come over if you have the guts." "My boss." Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly the sound of blue titans running came from the depths of the thick fog. It was not one, but a group. At this time, Charlotte also became nervous. He could indeed defeat a blue titan, but that was in the case of a one-on-one duel. If a group of blue titans rushed at him, he could only run. The rumbling sound of running was getting closer and closer, and the whole valley was trembling. But before Charlotte made the decision to run, a roar that sounded like a cat's suddenly came from the sky. In the blink of an eye, a chubby rock spirit descended from the sky and blocked in front of Charlotte, Lan Ji, and Hao Fong. It was holding the small bone spear in one of its claws, and then it roared into the depths of the thick fog. Sean Poo's series of roars were indeed like a cat's, but the momentum and power were more than 10,000 times that of a cat's. Its voice was very sharp. When it rushed into the depths of the thick fog, the dead branches and leaves on the ground were rolled up by the sound waves, like a river flowing in the direction of the blue titans. Without waiting for Charlotte's brain to activate the translation function, Hao Fong had already given the Ahimish translation. "I am the king of rock spirits. Queen of Rest asked me to escort these 3 idiots here to find ship. Don't mess with me. Otherwise, the rock spirit tribe will start a war with you." After Sean Poo's roar ended, the rumbling sound of running suddenly turned and went in the opposite direction. Rock spirits were rock spirits. In the Forest of Rest, rock spirits were an existence that could not be provoked, not to mention that Sean Poo was pretending to be the king of rock spirits. Those blue titans were not crazy. They would not provoke the rock spirit tribe and Queen of Rest. They came and went as quickly as they came. The crisis was resolved just like that. But Charlotte did not feel happy at all. He actually became an idiot. Was this team really going to become an idiot team? Chapter 1447. After resolving the crisis, Sean Poo flew away with a whoosh. He seemed to be playing the role of a hero, the kind who did good deeds without leaving his name. "Some idiots just like to act cool," Hao Fong said with a disdainful expression. Charlotte said, "Let's go. Stop talking nonsense. This place is not safe. We have to deal with that spaceship as soon as possible and leave this place." Hao Fong did not say anything more and continued to lead the way. Although it kept saying that Sean Poo was an idiot, it was still very grateful to Sean Poo for scaring away the group of blue titans. An hour later, the exploration spaceship team arrived at a narrow place. Charlotte finally saw the spaceship. It was in the shape of a spindle and was not as huge as he had imagined. He had imagined that the spaceship seed, which carried the hopes of the Archimedes Empire, would be very big. However, thinking back, he had been wrong. If they had used a huge spaceship to escape, they would have become a target for the Blue Moon people. The spindle-shaped spaceship was partially embedded in the mountain, and the rest was buried in the soil. The part that was exposed on the ground was almost buried by dead branches and leaves. However, what made Charlotte feel lucky was that the spaceship structure was still intact. There were no obvious signs of damage. He was not worried at all that the spaceship would rust, because the Archimedes Empire could not use iron and steel to build spaceships that could fly in space. The material technology of the Archimedes was very advanced, which was proven by Hao Feng's body. The eye-soul dagger on Lanji's body was also enough to prove the problem. "Ha ha! I'm back!" Hao Feng rushed toward the spaceship excitedly. "Xia, let's go take a look," Lan Jie said excitedly. Charlotte nodded and ran toward the spaceship with Lan Jie. He could not wait any longer. Hao Feng quickly found the door to the spaceship. It was under the spaceship, and at least 2/3 of it was buried in the soil. It tried to open the door, but the door did not respond at all. Even if the door was not buried in the soil, it could not be opened without power. Motherf asterisk Kerr. Hao Feng pounded on the spaceship door and said angrily, "Open the door! Open the door! You idiot! Didn't you open the door when I walked out of it? Who the F asterisk CK locked you up?" Charlotte awakened his X-ray vision, and his vision penetrated the cabin door. However, he soon discovered that his X-ray vision could not see through the situation inside the hatch. This situation made him feel a little surprised, but he soon felt relieved. This was a spaceship that could fly in the universe. Its material had to be strong enough to fly at the speed of light. At the same time, it had to resist the radiation of various rays in the universe. It was not surprising that its material could resist his X-ray vision. While Charlotte was pondering how to enter the spaceship, Shan Pu suddenly flew down from the cliff and landed on the top of the spaceship. Under its impact, the dead branches and leaves covering the top of the spaceship were blown away, revealing the black metal. "Hey, there's a hole in the side of this ship. We can get in from the top," Sam said. Charlotte smiled and sent a message to Shan Pu. "Okay, we'll be right there. Thank you." "Oof." Shan Pu snorted and then jumped into the hole. He obviously disdained Charlotte's expression of gratitude. Charlotte, Hao Feng, and Lan Jie quickly climbed to the top of the spaceship and saw the hole. It was a hole made by a mountain. It was not very big. "Boss, I'm familiar with the environment here. I'll go down first. I'll be your tour guide." Hao Feng jumped into the hole. Charlotte and Lan Jie then jumped into the hole, which was the interior of the spaceship. Thousands of years had caused the spaceship to lose all its energy, including its electricity. Unable to turn on the lights, the interior of the spaceship was dark. However, Hao Feng solved this problem. His two orange-like eyes released two bright beams of light, which immediately illuminated the interior of the spaceship. Shan Pu, who came in first, did not go far. Hao Feng's light quickly shone on him. He was looking at a pile of bones as if he was studying something. However, Charlotte knew that he was actually waiting for him. The interior of the spaceship was not big. With Hao Feng as the tour guide, Charlotte began to wander around the interior of the spaceship. He first visited the bridge of the spaceship. He found that the outer shell of the bridge was the most damaged part of the spaceship. The spaceship was disturbed by the energy field of the Forest of Rest. It suddenly lost control and dived down, crashing into everything in sight. The most damaged part was naturally the outer shell of the bridge. It was completely dented, and the window was broken. It would be troublesome to repair. "Hao Feng, where are the engineer robots that you mentioned? Take me there," Charlotte said. He did not want to waste a minute. "They're on the second floor. Follow me." Hao Feng led the way. The first floor was the bridge, the crew's rest cabin, escape cabin, hibernation cabin, and the weapon control system. The second floor was the engine room and the warehouse. The environment was relatively harsh. The engineer robots obviously could not enjoy the same treatment as the crew of the Archimedes Empire, so they were arranged to be in the warehouse on the second floor. Under Hao Feng's guidance, Charlotte quickly arrived at the door of the warehouse. The warehouse door was tightly shut and could not be opened. Hao Feng pried open a circuit box beside the door. After fiddling with the warehouse door for a while, there was still no reaction. It was angry and cursed. "Motherf asterisk Kerr. There's no energy. The cabin door is locked. I'll go find something to blow it up. Charlotte hesitated. Don't mess around. We're here to repair the spaceship, not blow it up. After a pause, he said, Can it be activated as long as there's energy? Of course. Its power system should be fine. I have the password, so I can pass the identification. Hao Fong said. Charlotte thought for a while. Then tell me where the energy input is. Hao Fong suddenly thought of something. It raised its short hand and slapped its head. Huh, how could I forget about your ability, boss? If you can activate me, this broken door is nothing. Hao Fong pointed to an alloy pipe in the circuit box and said, That's it. If there's energy going in, I have a way to open this door. Charlotte reached out and grabbed the alloy pipe. A wave of branding power was transferred from his hand to the metal pipe and then moved forward along the pipe. He could not see through the interior of the cabin door, but the branding power was his eyes. Wherever the branding power flowed through, the structure of that place would appear in his brain, big and small. This discovery suddenly gave him a way to quickly understand the entire spaceship. The branding power energy quickly entered the power system of the cabin door, and an indicator light also lit up. Hao Fong then entered the password on the password keypad, then took a step back and stood in a circular pattern in front of the cabin door. A blue light shone down and scanned Hao Fong. Click! When the scan was completed, the cabin door opened. Charlotte was still standing in front of the circuit box, continuing to inject the branding power energy into the pipe. This time, he was not trying to open the cabin door, but to turn the idea he had just now into reality. He wanted to use his branding power to scan the entire spaceship, understand the structure of the spaceship, and the damage to the spaceship. The branding power energy flowed quickly through the internal pipe system of the spaceship, and everywhere it passed was presented in the form of a three-dimensional image in his brain. The speed at which the branding power energy flowed was very fast as the speed at which electricity flowed through the wires. In almost a second or two, a three-dimensional image of the internal structure of the spaceship was born in Charlotte's brain. His heart was filled with amazement, and he was greatly inspired. If he returned to Earth now, the technology of Rema Group would undoubtedly lead the world, and the Lockheed Martin Corporation of the United States would not even be worthy of carrying its shoes. Boss, it's already opened. Hao Fong's voice sounded. Only then did Charlotte stop the scanning of the branding power. He nodded and then walked into the warehouse. Sean Poo suddenly spoke, feeling very surprised. You have psionic power in your body, and you can inject it into this spaceship? How did you do that? Who are you? Before Charlotte could respond, Hao Fong used the language of the rock spirit to say, My boss's body stores 96% of the psionic power. Are you scared? Silly. It suddenly covered its mouth. Mother of asterisk cur, I spilled the beans again. Charlotte smiled bitterly and sent a message to Sean Poo. What it said is true, but don't ask me why. I'm also looking for the answer myself. You are really the person Mother is looking for. I apologize for my previous behavior. I will help you complete your mission. Yes, Master. Sean Poo's attitude suddenly changed, and for the first time, it called Charlotte Master. Charlotte said, That's good, but you don't have to call me Master. I'm not your master. We can be comrades. If you really want a suitable title, you can call me Boss. I prefer this title. Boss. Sean Poo was slightly stunned. A strange expression appeared on its face, and then it said, Okay, then, Boss. Let's fix this spaceship first. Charlotte walked into the warehouse, and he thought to himself, Is the purity of my energy that important to it? It changed its attitude after knowing it must know something that I don't. After fixing this spaceship, I will find a chance to find out. Was the Queen of Rest trustworthy? As far as the current situation was concerned, the Queen of Rest was trustworthy. But he also believed in Zhu Xianyue. But what happened in the end? Zhu Xianyue lied to him about the box of the world, and even became his mortal enemy. And Kasha Ruiz, that guy had been lying to him from beginning to end, and he even used a lot of tools. If it was not for Isitabu's help at the last moment, Kasha Ruiz's conspiracy would probably have succeeded. The Queen of Rest was also a transcendent existence, and her goal was the missing piece of the box of the world. Who could guarantee that she did not keep any secrets and then plot against the fragment of the box of the world? After all, mastering the secret of the box of the world was equivalent to mastering the secret of the universe, and one could jump out of the rules of the universe. A large group of engineer robots entered Charlotte's sight. He put away his thoughts and walked over. After mastering the internal structure of the spaceship, he was more confident in repairing the spaceship and making it fly. Chapter 1448. Many of the engineer robots were broken and could not be repaired. However, Charlotte quickly thought of a solution, which was to disassemble the broken engineer robots, take the useful parts, and assemble them into new ones. It seemed impossible for an Earthling to repair an advanced civilization's robot. But for a special Earthling like Charlotte, such a miracle always happened, and it was very easy. He used the branding power to scan the interior of the engineer robot and grasp the internal structure of the engineer robot in seconds. Once he grasped the structure of the engineer robot, it was very easy to assemble it. Charlotte only took an hour to disassemble and assemble the first engineer robot. During this time, Haofeng also completed its work. It filled the power generation system with spirit ores, activated the lighting system, and the entire spaceship was lit up. The illuminated warehouse was filled with energy weapons, as well as the equipment used by the Achemis Empire for military production. The number of weapons and equipment used to produce weapons was shocking. Langer also found the Achemis Empire's treasure, which was stored in dozens of huge safes. Most of the safes were filled with money, but the money had turned into mud. However, the Achemis Empire's treasure could not only be money. There were also some valuable things, such as the biological alloy used to make Haofeng. Even now, it was a rare alloy that was very valuable, and there was no market for it. There were also many jewelry, precious cultural relics, and so on. The total value of these things was probably worth 200 or 300 million Blue Moon dollars, which made her extremely happy. After completing the assembly of the first engineer robot, Charlotte injected a bit of the branding power into it, and the engineer robot was activated. Haofeng gave it the command to repair its own kind, and it immediately went into work mode to disassemble its scrapped kind. With its help, Charlotte worked even faster, and it only took him half an hour to complete the assembly of the second engineer robot. As the number of engineer robots increased, Charlotte no longer needed to personally assemble them. The engineer robots assembled their own kind, and he only needed to give the assembled robot a bit of branding power. A large number of scrapped engineer robots became working ones. They entered various parts of the spaceship to repair the parts and wiring that needed to be repaired. Because of them, the ancient spaceship was glowing with life. The weapon system, crew sleep system, circulation system, power system, and power system were all eliminated. The time for the spaceship to take off was getting closer and closer. Charlotte was not idle either. While the engineering robots were repairing the spaceship, he stayed in the warehouse to study the weapons and manufacturing equipment of the Achemis Empire. If he wanted to get rid of the blue moon in the sky, he wouldn't be able to do it alone. He would need a powerful armed force. The Resistance Army was the best choice, but their weapons and equipment were too outdated. There was no way they could fight the Blue Moon people. The weapons in the spaceship were not enough. He had to find a way to produce more advanced weapons. On Earth, Charlotte had created the Thunder Horse military factory, but in this world, he did not want to take the same path. Even if he wanted to research and produce weapons, he wouldn't build a military factory. He would eventually hand over the equipment, weapons, and weapons-making equipment here to trustworthy people or organizations. Until now, he did not have any sense of belonging in this world. He was just a passerby. He wanted to go back to the world that belonged to him. He wanted to go back to his wife and children. 1 week later, Charlotte put all the spirit ores that he had brought out from Origin Canyon into the energy converter. They would become the power source for the spaceship to take off again. What a waste. Langier's heart ached. Such good spirit ores are actually used to drive a spaceship. This kind of spaceship can use level 3 spirit ores, but you're using level 1. I can't take it anymore. My heart hurts. Do you want me to help you rub it? Charlotte said. Go to hell. Lanji rolled her eyes at Charlotte. During the week in the spaceship, Charlotte came to her every day to ask for milk. She did not reject him and gave him as much as he wanted. A man and a woman, one eating and the other squeezing. Over time, the relationship between the two of them had long since become the kind where they could casually talk about anything. However, it was only to the extent of joking. Lanji had always kept her bottom line, which was that she only squeezed milk for Charlotte and did not let Charlotte eat it himself. If he ate it himself, then the relationship would become complicated. Hao Fong started the energy conversion system. The machine roared, and all the indicator lights lit up. All the indicators were normal. Boss, it's done. We can fly now, Hao Fong said. Then let's go back to the bridge and let it fly, Charlotte said happily. Where are we going? Lanjier asked. Charlotte thought for a moment. Let's find your father first. After picking up your father in Polisai, we'll go to the underground city of the desolate border. We'll plan our next step when we get there. The corner of Lanjier's mouth slightly curled up. Polisai again. Are you that obsessed with her? Let me tell you, if you have her milk, you won't have mine. You can choose one to eat. Charlotte was speechless. This was a headache-inducing problem that he had to face, and that was his relationship with Polisai and Lanji. Lanjier asked him to choose a milk to eat. From his point of view, he would definitely choose the perfect princess of Akimis, Blue Milk, who had a mysterious bloodline, because it would be more helpful for his evolution. However, if he directly rejected Polisai, it would be equivalent to hurting her. How could he bear to hurt that pitiful woman? Women were always his biggest headache. You can actually send her to our base, Lanjier said. She used the corner of her eye to observe Charlotte's reaction. Charlotte said, Your base? The base of the royal family? Will it be accepted if she goes to that place? Lanjier said, Yes, it's a base set up by the royal family of the Akimis Empire. You can rest assured that because of the destruction, the royal family is no longer the royal family of the past. They are fair and democratic. They will accept any wandering Akimis. In fact, there are many Akimis living in that base, and not all of them are members of the royal family. As long as you are willing, my father will take her to our base and help Polisai start her new life. Charlotte was silent for a moment, then said, When I see Polisai, I will ask her opinion. Of course, she won't be willing. She will definitely become a follower and follow you, Lanjier said. Charlotte smiled. I will convince her. The enemies he was going to face and the things he was going to do definitely couldn't bring Boris with him. Even the 8 female slaves, he had to convince them. It was impossible to keep them by his side. Polisai and the 8 female slaves would most likely not agree, but he also had a way to convince them, and that was deep hypnosis. Returning to the bridge, Charlotte saw a large group of neatly arranged engineer robots. An engineer robot walked out of the line and gave an Akimis Empire military salute to Charlotte, which was a movement of raising its right arm. After the salute, the engineer robot said in Chinese, Captain, all the maintenance work has been completed. The Huaxia can take off at any time. It spoke Chinese because Hao Fong had downloaded the Chinese language pack and replaced it with the engineer robot's language pack. As for changing the name of the spaceship to Huaxia, this was also a change made after consulting with Charlotte. As long as it could please Xia Lei, it would spare no effort to do so. Very good, then get ready to take off. It was the first time that Charlotte had been the captain of a spaceship, and he felt a little excited. Where did that guy Shan Pu go? Why didn't I see him? Lanjier asked. Only then did Charlotte think of Shan Pu. This week, he had been so busy that he had no time to communicate with Shan Pu, and he rarely paid attention to what he was doing. It was just that yesterday, he had seen Shan Pu take out several steel ropes from the warehouse. He was a little curious at the time, but he didn't ask. Now that they were about to take off, Shan Pu wasn't in the spaceship, which became a problem. Don't worry about that idiot. Let's go by ourselves, Hao Fong said. At this time, the Huaxia suddenly trembled. Charlotte was shocked. What happened? Hao Fong then started the monitoring system, and the situation outside the spaceship was projected to the center of the bridge. It was a few huge blue titans dragging the spaceship out. Each blue titan had a steel rope tied to its body, and those steel ropes were stretched straight. Shan Pu was sitting on the back of a blue titan, commanding it to pull the Huaxia spaceship out. Hao Fong said disdainfully, "Doesn't this idiot know that our spaceship can fly backwards? With the kinetic energy of the Huaxia spaceship, it's not difficult to get out of the mountain." Well, but this saves a lot of trouble. In fact, this was also a manifestation of Hao Fong's change of opinion about Shan Pu. A smile appeared on Charlotte's face. "Yes, it's becoming more and more sensible." "Longier," he said, "it's indeed becoming more and more sensible. But if you take it to the city in the wilderness, it will definitely be treated as a monster. If it gets angry, it will be very dangerous. Have you thought about how to deal with it?" Charlotte said, "I've thought about it for a long time. Make it a piece of clothing that can hide its wings. If it only shows its head, others will think that it's just a huge cat." Lanji shrugged. "Well, I must have cheated on you in my previous life." Charlotte, several blue titans dragged the Huaxia spaceship out of the mountain. Shan Pu returned to the Huaxia spaceship. Without saying anything, he found a chair and sat down. That appearance, that momentum, was still so cool. Charlotte was used to its style, so he didn't even say a word of thanks. He ordered take off. Without enough crew members, the large group of engineer robots had to take on the role of crew members. They started the spaceship's power system, and the spaceship's engine began to work, making a loud roar. The whole spaceship was shaking, giving people a feeling that it would fall apart at any time. After all, it was an antique spaceship from more than 3,000 years ago. Even if it was repaired, it could not be restored to the state of more than 3,000 years ago. The problem of aging was not a problem that those engineers could solve. But no matter what, the spaceship was still out of the shackles of the ground. "Captain, we are being disturbed. The instrument is not working properly." An engineer robot reported the real-time situation to Captain Xia. In fact, Charlotte also felt the activity of the energy field in the Forest of Rest, but he was not worried. He said, "Continue to fly. The interference energy field will disappear soon." "Yes, Captain." The reporting robot continued to operate. The interference of the energy field in the Forest of Rest to the spaceship was getting stronger and stronger, but when the spaceship was rising, the energy field suddenly disappeared. The Queen of Rest had opened the energy field that sealed the Forest of Rest. The Huaxia spaceship flew out of the canyon, flew into the sky, and then flew in the direction of the wilderness. Chapter 1449. One day later, in the underground city of the desolate border. I wonder how Charlotte is doing. In the White House, Contanana looked at the dark street outside the window and frowned, unable to hide the worry in her heart. Liang Tao smiled bitterly. "I hope he's lucky. Since ancient times, only the holy thunder has come out of a place like the Forest of Rest alive. Sigh, who can compare to the holy thunder?" Contanana sighed. "I should have advised him not to take unnecessary risks. I also wanted him to stay, but he didn't listen and insisted on going." Liang Tao had a helpless expression. Contanana said, "The machine he left us is very useful. We use it to modify many weapons. If only he could make some more for us. Now the Black Market Alliance want to take back control of the desolate border city from our hands, even threatening to start a war with us. Those despicable people. Don't they understand that the Blue Moon people are our enemies?" Liang Tao had a worried expression. "The Black Market Alliance is interested in the oil and rare mineral resources in the new city. We are in trouble because of our wealth. The Black Market Alliance's weapons and equipment are advanced. If they really attack us, it will be a fierce battle." Contanana said, "We are not afraid of war, but we have to face the serious consequences of a war with the Black Market Alliance. If our strength is damaged, our position in the Resistance Army will drop, my influence will also fall, and the Resistance Army will really become a pile of loose sand. This is the result that the Blue Moon people love to see, but we can't avoid it. Why don't we negotiate with the Black Market Alliance? They want benefits, not war." Liang Tao said. Nana smiled bitterly. Negotiate? Those people will be greedy. Their army is already on the way. In this situation, if we take the initiative to negotiate with them, they will think that we are afraid of them. Our benefits are not guaranteed at all. They will demand an exorbitant price. At this time, there was a commotion in the corridor outside the Oval Office. What are you doing? Ramona's voice. You can't go in. Get out. If you don't go out, I won't be polite. Lini's voice. Peace Village's village chief also arrived at Desolate Borders Lower City. Her current identity was no longer a village chief, but a low-level officer of the Resistance Army. The team she led was also the original armed personnel of Pingon Village. Get out of my way. A man's voice sounded rough. No one can stop me from entering any place, let alone the so-called office building of your Resistance Army. I want to see Nana. If you stop me again, damn it, I'll raise this place to the ground. This tone, he simply did not put the Resistance Army in his eyes. In the office, Liang Tao's face suddenly changed. Royce, the Legion commander of the Armored Legion of the Black Market Alliance, actually intervened in this matter. It seems that the Black Market Alliance is serious this time. Nana's heart sank. Looks like we can only negotiate. I'll ask Lianai to let him go. Liang Tao walked towards the door. But before Liang Tao could walk to the door and open it, the door was violently smashed open. A strong man in human form crashed into the room together with the door. Liang Tao was instantly stunned. Blackbeard, it's me. What do you want? Blackbeard's face was full of disdain. A middle-aged man finally walked in. The middle-aged man had blonde hair and blue eyes. He had a strong physique and a scar that ran through his entire face. He had tattooed the scar into a black lightning. This was Royce's name card. He didn't need to announce his identity. Those who saw him would know who he was just from the scary scar tattoo on his face. Blackbeard and Royce used this method to break into Nana's office. This was not only looking down on the Resistance Army, it was also an insult. Nana's face turned green with anger. What do you want? This is the command center of the Resistance Army. It's not a place for you to behave atrociously. Commander Kongtu, Royce sneered. His voice was full of disdain. You might be able to scare others like this, but it's useless against me. Liang Tao said with a smile. Let's talk nicely. Why do you have to hurt our friendship? Royce, I know the purpose of your visit. Since you're here, we can't be bothered to go to your place to talk. Let's talk here. Royce didn't even care about Liang Tao. Hand over that kid, Blackbeard said angrily. This is the most basic condition that Legion Commander Royce is willing to negotiate with you. Only when this condition is met will Legion Commander Royce be willing to negotiate with you. You're too much, Nana said angrily. Don't think that we're afraid of you. At most, we'll start a war. Start a war? Ha ha. Royce couldn't help but laugh. Commander Kongtu, you'd better take a look at our strength before saying such words. An armed member of the Black Market Alliance took out a portable projector and played a video in front of Nana and Liang Tao. Dozens of humanoid mechas, dozens of tracked armored vehicles, and 3D projections of thousands of rapidly marching armed warriors appeared in the Oval Office. This 3D projection made Nana and Liang Tao feel immense pressure. With the equipment and personnel that Royce brought, the underground city's Resistance Army was no match for them at all. What was even worse was that the place where this powerful armored force appeared was already very close to the desolate border city. This was just a video. This armored troop might not have entered desolate border city yet. Humph. Royce snorted in disdain and said sarcastically, Commander Kongtu, do you still want to start a war with us? Nana was silent. Starting a war was just an order for her, but it was a matter of life and death for those warriors. With their strength, once the war started, all the Resistance Army warriors in desolate border city would die. Faced with such a situation, what decision should she make? Commander Kongtu, you're very clear about the conditions for starting a negotiation, Blackbeard said sinisterly. Hand over that kid. You have no other choice. Nana suppressed the anger in her and said, Charlotte went to the Forest of Rest. He's not in desolate border city. If you want to find him, go to the Forest of Rest. I can't hand him over to you. Blackbeard said, I know that he bought a house in desolate border city and bought 8 female slaves from the Black Market Alliance. It's the same if you hand those 8 female slaves to us. Contanana was so angry that she laughed. So you know about his situation. You don't actually want to negotiate with us. You're just here to make demands, right? Tell me. I want to hear what you want. First, act wildly, then show off their armed forces to exert pressure. It was all for benefits. This was a trick. If that's the case, I'll cut to the chase. Royce's tone was aggressive. Surrender to us and hand over all control of desolate border city. The resistance army wants to leave desolate border city, and you. Royce didn't continue. Blackbeard sneered mockingly. You have to come with us. The Black Market Alliance board needs your explanation. Contanana was furious. She said angrily, You want me to explain to the Black Market Alliance board? What explanation? I don't need to explain to anyone. Royce sneered. Then there's no other way. We'll attack desolate border city and kill all of you. In the end, we'll still capture you and bring you back to the Black Market Alliance board. You'll still face the Black Market Alliance's trial. You're going too far. Liang Tao pointed at the door. I'll give you 30 seconds to get out. Otherwise, you'll be carried out. That will depend on whether your resistance army has the strength to do so. A cold glint flashed across Royce's eyes. Blackbeard suddenly whistled. Contanana couldn't help but look at Liang Tao. Li and I suddenly ran in from the door. Commander, bad news. There are a lot of unidentified people outside. Contanana shifted her gaze to the floor-to-ceiling window. She immediately saw a large group of unfamiliar faces in coats on the street. Those people in coats walked over as if nothing had happened. There were at least 100 to 200 of them. It was obvious that they had weapons hidden under their coats, and they looked menacing. The resistance army soldiers guarding the White House immediately tensed up when the people from the Black Market Alliance appeared. They formed a human wall in front of the White House, forming a line of defense. Someone contacted the resistance army soldiers elsewhere and asked for reinforcements. Contanana was shocked and angry. What's going on? So many people sneaked in, and I didn't receive any information. Liang Tao's face was gloomy. He didn't say anything. He obviously didn't receive any information either. Royce sneered. You want to control desolate border city with just you? Stop joking. I really don't understand. Your resistance army has neither money nor equipment. Why would those soldiers follow you and risk their lives for you? The resistance army soldiers became even more nervous when the people from the Black Market Alliance appeared. They formed a human wall in front of the house, forming a line of defense. Someone contacted the resistance army soldiers and asked for reinforcements. Make your decision, Commander Kongtu, before your men die, Royce said. Contanana gritted her teeth. It was extremely difficult for her to make such a decision. Royce sneered. Don't you understand? We were able to enter the underground city so smoothly because there are people in the resistance army who want you dead. Once you make the decision to go to war, Blackbeard said, Army Commander Royce's armored troops will launch a fierce ground attack and clear your defensive lines in the surface city. My men will start attacking from within. They're a bunch of unrestrained bastards. I can't guarantee that they won't do anything heartless. Blackbeard's gang also had powerful armed forces and couldn't be underestimated. You don't have much time, Royce urged. Surrender to us and come with us. Contanana was silent for a moment. Are you kidding me? How do you know you'll win without going through a war? Even if you fail, I'll make you pay a heavy price. Surrender? The word surrender doesn't exist in my dictionary. You better think carefully, Royce said coldly. Once the war starts, your men won't survive. Contanana retorted. More than half of your men will die too. *MN. Liang Tao said angrily. Let's start the war. Whether it's the surface city or the underground city, we'll fight you to the end. You want to take away Frontier's underground city with just a few words? How can there be such a good thing in this world? Do you think we're fools? Or are you King fools? Royce and Blackbeard looked at each other. Both of their eyes were filled with a sinister light. This was a signal for war. The atmosphere in the office was tense. At this critical moment, Ramona suddenly barged into the office. She looked nervous and said breathlessly, "Commander, Chief of Staff." Yang Tao frowned. "Why are you so nervous? Let's talk this out." What? Ramona still couldn't catch her breath. Charlotte is back. 1 second. The office suddenly became so quiet that a pin drop could be heard. Chapter 1450. Charlotte was back. Not Zhou Lei, but Wang Lei. This name represented a legend. For some people, hearing this name would make them feel close and safe. For others, hearing this name was a nightmare. Hearing it would make them feel afraid and uneasy. After a short silence, Liang Tao suddenly scolded, "What nonsense are you talking about?" Charlotte went to the forest of rest. "Why is he here? These people standing in front of you are all cunning. How could they be fooled by you? Get out of here. Don't talk nonsense here." Ramona was stunned for a moment. She looked wronged. "Chief of Staff, I'm telling the truth." He is. Contanana suddenly interrupted Ramona. "Be starred. I told you to get out. Can't you hear me? We don't need liars here." Ramona finally understood. Liang Tao and Contanana were not actually scolding her. They were just reminding her that she had made the wrong report at the wrong time. The people from the Black Market Alliance and the Blackbeard Gang had come here for one important reason. Charlotte. Sarong. He really didn't come back. Ramona stammered and turned to leave without finishing her sentence. "Wait," Blackbeard suddenly said sternly. "Make yourself clear before you leave. Where is Charlotte?" Ramona did not dare to stay and quicken her pace. "Damn it, you're asking for it." Blackbeard suddenly pulled out his energy pistol and pointed it at Ramona's back. A few of the Resistance Army soldiers in the corridor also pointed their guns at Blackbeard. However, Blackbeard did not care about the Resistance Army soldiers at all. He still maintained his posture of pointing his gun at Ramona. Royce sneered. "Commander Cantu, what kind of show are you putting on? Charlotte is back. Are you going to hand him over to me, or am I going to capture him myself? If I do it myself, I'm afraid I can't guarantee that I won't hurt the innocent." "I've already made myself clear," Contanana shouted at Royce. "If you want war, then let's go to war. Stop talking nonsense." "Fine, I'll give you a big surprise. None of you will live." Royce's voice was extremely cold. "Damn it." Liang Tao suddenly pulled out his gun and pointed it at Reyes's head. "How dare you threaten us here? Do you believe that I will blow your head off right now?" "Of course I can, but the entire desolate border city will be buried with me." He opened his palm and revealed a miniature communicator. Then, he said, "Prepare to launch missiles. Target, the Underground Resistance Army Command Center." Liang Tao and Contanana were stunned. Royce said arrogantly, "If I wasn't prepared, would I personally come to your command center to ask for people? As long as you shoot, not only the people of the Resistance Army, but everyone here will be buried with me." Just then, "Who is that, Royce? Are you sure?" A man's voice suddenly came into the Oval Office. Kong Tunana and Liang Tao also shifted their gazes to the door. The moment they heard that voice, their hearts almost jumped out of their chests, because they were very familiar with that voice. It was Charlotte's voice. Charlotte was really back. However, Kong Tunana and Liang Tao didn't see him. Charlotte didn't appear at the door. The few resistance soldiers standing in the corridor looked at each other in dismay. Apparently, they did not see anyone appear either. Knock, knock. Suddenly, there was a knock on the window behind Kong Tunana. She turned around abruptly and saw a familiar face. The man who had been sticking to the French window like a gecko hadn't changed for a while. He was still so different and good-looking. Blackbeard and Royce shifted their gazes to the French window. When they saw the man standing outside the window, their expressions were indescribable. Not because of anything else, but because the man standing outside the window was really Xiao Lei. Charlotte's appearance was beyond everyone's imagination. The atmosphere in the Oval Office became tense and strange. He was nervous because he might become a fuse that could be ignited at any time. Who knew when the bomb would be detonated and the place would be filled with corpses? What was strange was that he was clearly surrounded by the people from the Blackbeard gang and the Black Market Alliance, but he still walked right into their trap. However, the most puzzling thing was how he appeared. How did he avoid the sight of the armed men on the ground and climb up to the window on the second floor? And why did he climb up the window? Amidst the shock and confusion, Charlotte reached out and knocked on the window again. He still had a smile on his face. "Open the window. You're not going to let me stand outside and talk to you, are you?" These words seemed to be directed at Kong Tu Nana. Kong Tu Nana was both angry and amused. "This is a French window. How can I open it for you? Don't you know the situation? Get out of here." Charlotte said, "I'm here to help you solve the problem. How can you chase me away? Rude." "You." Kong Tu Nana was instantly infuriated. In the Oval Office, Blackbeard suddenly waved his hand, and the energy pistol moved toward Charlotte. Without any warning, without any words, he pulled the trigger without hesitation. Boom! Crash! The energy pistol fired, and the French window burst apart. The glass on the window and the frame of the window were pushed outward by the shockwave from the explosion of the energy pistol. Charlotte was the first to bear the brunt of the blast. The energy pistol exploded on his chest. The glass shards and the metal frame of the window stabbed into his chest. His body was also sent flying by the shockwave of the explosion. He flew even further than the glass shards. "No," Liang Tao exclaimed. "Brother." Kong Tu Nana was completely dumbfounded. Her mind went blank. She could not understand how such a thing could happen. How could such a powerful man be killed just like that? And he died like an idiot. Blackbeard, who had killed Charlotte, was also stunned for a moment. Then he laughed. "Ha ha, damn it, that's it. If he dares to say that Charlotte is powerful in front of me again, I'll shoot him." Just as Blackbeard finished speaking, suddenly, a figure leaped in from the broken French window. The figure was very fast, faster than the wind. He suddenly rushed in and stopped in front of Blackbeard. During the entire process, Blackbeard did not even have the time to make a single evasive movement. When the figure stopped, Blackbeard's eyes widened in horror. That was because he saw the face of Charlotte, the one he had just blown up. Next, a sharp pain came from his chest. Blackbeard hurriedly lowered his head to look. Next, he saw a quaint-looking dagger stabbed into his chest. The dagger had stabbed into his chest when Charlotte had charged in. However, it was only now that he felt the pain. It was a heart-wrenching pain. Charlotte's right hand that was holding onto the energy pistol pulled back, and blood sprayed out from Blackbeard's chest. "Arg!" Blackbeard screamed out miserably, and his hand that was holding onto the energy pistol subconsciously swept toward Charlotte. A sneer appeared on the corners of Charlotte's mouth. His right hand moved, and the blood-stained dagger flashed, cutting through Blackbeard's wrist that was holding onto the energy pistol. This dagger did not just leave a cut, but Blackbeard's entire wrist. Charlotte's hand moved, and the dagger in his hand moved in and out of Blackbeard's body at a speed that was hard to see with the naked eye. Although it had only been a few blinks of an eye, he had stabbed Blackbeard at least 20 times. Additionally, none of his stabs were fatal. Boom! Blackbeard's robust body that weighed hundreds of kilograms fell to the ground. His body was like a leaking hot water bag as blood sprayed out and flowed out. He howled in pain and writhed about on the ground. Both his legs twitched on the ground, and the stench of urine and feces wafted out from his crotch. The damage that Charlotte had inflicted upon him had destroyed his nervous system. He could not even control his body to defecate or pee. Blackbeard had indiscriminately shot Charlotte, but Charlotte did not waste time talking to him. He did not even say a word until Blackbeard was shot to the ground. However, just as Blackbeard fell to the ground and was about to stop breathing, Charlotte still said, "Damn it, I've been looking for you for a long time. I didn't expect you to walk right into my trap and come to my house. Are you here to die?" After hearing this, a gurgling sound came from Blackbeard's throat, and he breathed his last. There was an eerie silence in the Oval Office. In the end, it was Kong Tu Nana who broke the oppressive silence in the office. "How could you? Aren't you?" Xiao Lei smiled at her. "Dead, isn't it?" Kong Tu Nana nodded. That was the question that she wanted to ask. A voice suddenly came from downstairs. Damn it. My beautiful boss, are you done yet? It's so dark outside. I'm so scared. This was Hao Feng's voice. The Charlotte, that was stuck to the window like a gecko, was actually just a three-dimensional projection created by it. Hao Feng's voice gave Charlotte a headache. It was a robot, yet it was afraid of the dark. Who's outside? Conda Nana asked curiously. Go see for yourself. Charlotte's gaze shifted to Royce, and then he walked toward him. Royce retreated to the door while laughing. Ha! This is a misunderstanding. Charlotte also laughed. Well said. I also think this is a misunderstanding. You want to kill me? Royce continued to retreat to the door. Charlotte nodded. Yes, I always kill those who want to kill me first. You can't kill me. Royce had already retreated to the door. My people are outside, and there's a missile with a biological warhead aimed at this place. He raised his right hand and revealed a miniature communicator in his hand. With a single command from me, this place will become hell and everyone will die. Give me an order and I'll listen. Xiaolei said. Royce was stunned for a moment before he roared fiercely. I'm not joking with you. Charlotte said. I'm not joking with you either. Give the command. The missile flying in the dungeon will look better than fireworks. Chapter 1451. Reyes didn't have the courage to send a missile over to blow up the White House and bury all the people in the border area with him. He only made this preparation to scare Kong, Tu Nana, and Liang Tao. He was sure that Kong, Tu Nana, and Liang Tao would give in because they wouldn't ignore the lives of the people in the underground city. The threat of the armored troops on the ground, the underground armed forces, and the missile, Reyes had made a good move. His plan was simple. He wanted to take down the underground city with 0 casualties and achieve all his goals. It was impossible for him to fight against the resistance army in the desolate border city until his head was broken and bleeding. He was able to muddle through to this point today because he deeply understood the importance of preserving his strength. When Charlotte suddenly appeared and killed Blackbeard, he didn't believe that Charlotte would dare to touch him because he hadn't played any of his trump cards yet. But Charlotte actually forced him to give the order to launch the missile. What could he do? That missile can kill 100,000 people in this almost enclosed space. Royce reminded him fiercely, You're bluffing. I don't believe you. Charlotte continued to force his way toward Reyes. Don't come over. If you come any closer, I'll give the order. Reyes became nervous. Blackbeard was still bleeding on the ground. He didn't want to become the next Blackbeard. How long are you going to King waste? Give the order. I still have other things to deal with. I don't have time to waste with you, Charlotte urged. You're crazy. You're King crazy. Reyes retreated to the end of the corridor. Charlotte didn't play by the rules. He didn't know what to do anymore. Kong Tu Nana came over and lowered her voice. This lunatic put a biological missile in the underground city. We can't let him go. If you don't do something, we will. Liang Tao glanced at the direction of the floor-to-ceiling window. The snipers of the resistance army were already in position. Leave it to me, Charlotte said. It was just a simple sentence. Charlotte didn't explain much, but Kong Tu Nana believed that he could handle it. There was no other reason than that this man had created too many miracles. Therefore, after hearing Charlotte's words, she put her hands behind her back and gestured to Liang Tao. Liang Tao also put his hands behind his back and gestured to the snipers. Reyes retreated from the White House, drenched in sweat. From a second floor to the first floor and through a hall, this was the most difficult journey he had taken in his life. He came with the mission of killing Charlotte. Although Charlotte was right in front of him, he didn't want to face him at all. In front of the White House, a large number of soldiers from the Black Market Alliance, the armed men from the Blackbeard Gang, and the Resistance Army were facing off with guns. The atmosphere was tense. In terms of numbers, the Resistance Army had a huge advantage. After all, this was their territory, and Royce and Blackbeard only brought in some elites. Most of their people were still in the surface city. However, in terms of equipment, the Resistance Army was at a great disadvantage. Their equipment couldn't be compared to the weapons and equipment of the Black Market Alliance at all. Once the battle started, they might not necessarily win, even though they had the advantage in numbers. Seeing his subordinates, Reyes finally breathed a sigh of relief. He was always on guard against Charlotte's sudden attack. However, even when he retreated to the front line formed by his subordinates, Charlotte still didn't attack him. More and more soldiers from the Armored Corps were gathering here. They had received the words that Reyes said in the White House through the communication device. When they realized that something had happened, they rushed over as reinforcements. Looking at the armored army soldiers gathering from different places, Kong Tu Nana's heart sank. She began to regret trusting Charlotte and not taking action to let Reyes escape from the White House. If she had caught Reyes in the White House, she could have used Reyes as a bargaining chip to negotiate with the armored army soldiers. She would have more or less gained the upper hand. But now, although Charlotte had killed Blackbeard, the situation was worse. He was in a passive position. Charlotte stopped in front of the defense line formed by the resistance army soldiers. He didn't give chase. Reyes also stopped in front of the armored army. He wasn't nervous at all. His confidence had returned. The board suspects that you killed Hayakawa Shinsuke. I didn't believe it. Charlotte, after seeing you, I believe that you're very powerful. However, you can't change anything. I still have the upper hand. I can destroy this underground city at any time. I can also kill all of you at any time. None of you can stop me. Charlotte smiled and didn't say anything. Reyes looked past Charlotte and shifted his gaze to Kong Tu Nana, who was behind Charlotte. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile, as if he had control over the entire situation. Surrender, Commander Kong, Tuesday, before I kill your people and destroy this city. Kong Tu Nana's face was livid. She was in a terrible mood. At that moment, a comical-looking robot squeezed in from behind a row of resistance soldiers. It was accidentally knocked by a resistance soldier and almost fell to the ground. It scolded, "What the F asterisk CK? Idiot, why do you have such long legs? You almost tripped me." The rebuked resistance soldier's face turned red. However, at this critical juncture where a bloody battle could break out at any time, he didn't have the mood to argue with a square-shaped robot. When the robot appeared, everyone's attention was focused on it. Even Kong Tu Nana and Liang Tao were surprised. In the Oval Office, Kong Tu Nana had asked Charlotte, who was talking downstairs. Charlotte had told her to go see for herself, but she didn't. Now that she saw it, she was also stunned. It was the first time she saw a robot that scolded people, and such an ugly one at that. "My beautiful boss, I'm here." Hao Fong moved its short legs and came to Charlotte's side. It waved its small fists and scolded Royce and the armored army. "What the F asterisk CK? Idiots. Do you idiots know who you're facing? It's me, Flaming White Dragon." The scene of the armed confrontation was already very quiet, and its voice was clearly heard by everyone. Royce's eyes were extremely gloomy. He was talking about destroying a city and killing 100,000 people, but Charlotte and this ugly robot obviously didn't take his threats seriously. And they made the scene look so funny. "Boss," Hao Fong said, "that guy Sean Poo and that stupid B asterisk TCH settled it. I rushed over as soon as I got the news." A smile appeared on the corner of Charlotte's mouth. "Arrest them," Royce ordered. He didn't want to see Charlotte and this ugly robot anymore. "Wait," Charlotte said. Royce sneered and said, "You've already lost your best chance. I won't give you any more chances." Charlotte smiled and said, "I won't give you any chances either." After a pause, he said, "Hao Fong, show them." "Okay, my beautiful boss." A three-dimensional projection appeared above Hao Fong's head. It was the deserted city on the surface. Dozens of armored vehicles advanced side by side, and dozens of humanoid combat mechs followed closely. Behind the humanoid combat mechs were hundreds of soldiers armed to the teeth. This was the image of the Black Market Alliance's armored army marching. A few kilometers in front of this armored army was the Resistance Army's New City defense line. Once they encountered the armored army, the Resistance Army's defense line would not be able to withstand the charge of this armored army. "Ha ha!" Royce couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Commander Kanto, do you see this? You don't have much time left. My armored vehicles and combat mechs will easily take care of your defense line in the new city. As for here, I only need to say one word to turn this underground city into a dead city. Surrender. The armored vehicle's tracks crushed the ground, and the humanoid combat mechs advanced with large strides. How could human flesh and blood stop them? Katanena bit her lip. She couldn't see any hope. Just as she was about to make that painful decision, a white light suddenly flew down from the front of the building. When it stopped again, it was already in the cockpit of a humanoid combat mech. It was fast, extremely fast. It was ruthless, extremely ruthless. The cameraman purposely zoomed in on the scene. On top of Hao Feng's head, in the three-dimensional projection, the combat mech operator was nailed to the back of the cockpit alive. What pierced through the cockpit was a bone spear. It was even harder than alloy. Everyone who saw the three-dimensional projection was dumbfounded. However, this was the prelude to the climax of the three-dimensional projection. Suddenly encountering a sniper, the armored vehicles and combat mechs reacted quickly. Machine gun ammunition and artillery shells rained down on the building. The building collapsed amidst the gunfire, and smoke billowed. A huge cat suddenly leaped out of the smoke and spread its wings. Its flying speed was comparable to a jet fighter. The fat cat flew in the sky, and the wind blew through its fur. Its fur was so soft and smooth. I swear, it doesn't have Xiao Ji, Hao Feng said. And that idiot always likes to be in the limelight. Hao Feng's voice was out of place in the three-dimensional projection, but no one listened to it, and no one cared. It was 100% ignored. In the three-dimensional projection, the fat cat with wings descended from the sky and pounced into the battle formation of the armored troops. The humanoid combat mechs fell under the attack of its claws and bone spears. The armored vehicles were pushed to the ground by brute force, their tracks facing the sky. The armed personnel on the ground fired at the fat cat with wings like crazy, but their bullets couldn't hit it at all. The fat cat with wings pounced at them, and with one swipe of its claws, it could tear an officer wearing a light blue moon armor into pieces. More terrifyingly, it had the habit of digging out people's hearts and eating them in one bite. F***. So disgusting. Hao Feng spat. An idiot is an idiot. It actually eats people's hearts. Doesn't it know that it should be roasted on fire before eating? This kind of scene, this kind of words, the armed personnel of the armored troops could not help but feel disgusted. This isn't real. Royce suddenly exploded. He shouted hoarsely, "Kill them." Chapter 1452. It was really a hissing sound. He used all his strength, but the sound that came out of his mouth was ridiculously small, so small that only he could hear it. His ferocious expression, coupled with such a voice, gave people a feeling of absurdity and ridiculousness. "Kill them, dash!" Reyes roared again, but this time, even he couldn't hear his own voice. Charlotte took out a blue headgear from his pocket and put it on his head calmly. His headgear didn't even cover his eyes and nostrils. From the top of his head to the neck, there wasn't even a square centimeter gap. The Cantanana couldn't understand it all. Liang Tao also shook his head with a bitter smile. He also didn't know what Charlotte wanted to do. After coming back from the Forest of Rest, Charlotte's mysteriousness was even stronger than before. He couldn't see through him before, let alone now. Reyes suddenly pulled out his gun. Charlotte suddenly moved. In a flash, he broke through the distance of about 10 meters and rushed in front of Reyes. Bang, bang, bang. One of Reyes's guards fired. The bullet hit Charlotte's chest. His clothes on his chest were torn, revealing a layer of blue skin. Charlotte grabbed Reyes's collar and lifted him up. Then, he threw him at the guard who fired at him. The guard was smashed to the ground by Reyes. Charlotte rushed into the Black Market Alliance's battle formation. At that moment, his aura was definitely the return of the king. He was alone against 200 to 300 people. He only had a dagger in his hand, but the opponents were armed to the teeth with guns and cannons. In the eyes of all the resistance army soldiers, his charge was no different from suicide. But Charlotte changed their opinion in a second. A cold light flashed, and a head flew into the air. Blood spurted out from the neck like a fountain. This fountain of blood was the prelude to Charlotte's attack. Charlotte rushed into the crowd like a mad bull. The people in front of him were knocked to the ground like sugarcane. Heads kept flying into the sky, and people kept falling to the ground, clutching their necks or hearts. Wherever his footsteps went, blood stained the place. Wherever the ice soul dagger passed, there would be a pile of corpses lying on the ground. The stench of blood lingered in the air. It was a smell that could make a veteran soldier on the battlefield vomit. Cries of agony and cries for help mixed together, coupled with the sound of cold weapons cutting flesh. It was a battle song of the undead. Kananana's mouth opened wide and could not close. When Charlotte charged towards Charlotte and the armed men of the Black Market Alliance, she had wanted to order the resistance army to fight and save Charlotte. But in the blink of an eye, it had become like this. She didn't even have time to give her order. The soldiers of the resistance army were all dumbfounded and terrified. What they saw was not a battle, because it was not fair at all. What they saw was a devil's massacre, because only a devil would be so cruel and bloody. Charlotte killed 3 of the armed men of the Black Market Alliance and the Blackbeard gang. Blood flowed like a river, and corpses were strewn all over the ground. His body was full of bullet holes, and there was not a single piece of intact cloth on his clothes. His body was also drenched in blood, as though he had climbed out of a pool of blood. The surviving armed men of the Black Market Alliance and the Blackbeard gang did not have the courage to fight anymore. They turned and ran. "Kneel!" Charlotte roared. His voice was like thunder. Without exception, all the surviving armed men knelt on the ground in 2 seconds. They threw away the guns in their hands and hugged their heads, not daring to look at Charlotte. Even if they survived, they would tremble at the thought of what had just happened in Charlotte's appearance for the rest of their lives. Even if it was a dream, they would wake up from it. Charlotte walked to a pile of corpses, kicked away a headless corpse, and dragged Reyes out from under it. No, Reyes begged. He could speak now, but he did not have the mood to think about why he could not speak just now. There was only one thing in his heart: fear. Charlotte dragged Reyes to a place without corpses, then made him kneel down and placed the ice soul dagger on Reyes' neck. "Don't kill me, don't kill me. I'll give you everything. How much do you want? Woman, I'll give you my woman too. Don't kill me, don't." Reyes no longer had any arrogance on him. The scary scar tattoo on his face didn't look like a black lightning bolt anymore. Instead, it looked like a black earthworm or a caterpillar. "I can kill you in the White House," Charlotte said coldly. "Do you know why I didn't kill you there?" Reyes shook his head violently. "I don't know, I don't want to know. Let me go, and I'll leave with my people immediately." "I'm keeping you alive because I want to kill you here," Charlotte said. "I want your people to see how I treat the people who invade the barren city, and how I treat the people who want to hurt me." At this point, his voice suddenly became louder and filled with ruthlessness. "All of you, raise your heads and look. Go back and tell the board of the Black Market Alliance what happened here. I, Charlotte, am here. If they dare to invade here, I'll kill them all. If they want to take revenge on me or hurt people related to me, I'll kill my way to the Black Market Alliance's headquarters and kill them all." Everyone looked at Charlotte and Reyes, who was kneeling in front of Charlotte. The army commander in their memories was a scary man, but now, in front of another man, he had become a worthless and pitiful worm. "Bring my information to the Black Market Alliance's board of directors." Charlotte grabbed Reyes' hair and stretched his neck. No, don't kill me," Reyes cried. "I'll take that as your last words." Charlotte took off the blue mask on his head and revealed his face. "Wait, my beautiful master." Hao Fong ran over. "I'll take a picture of you. You're so pretty, it'd be a waste if you don't take a picture of your face." Hao Fong smiled. A few black beads of sweat appeared on Charlotte's forehead. He felt like Xiang Yu, the king of Chu, was at the end of his road and was forced to commit suicide by the Wu River. Suddenly, he realized that the person in his arms was not Yu, but Sister Feng. How could a sword that was placed on his neck cut through? "All right, it's fine if you don't smile. I'm already prepared. I'll take a video and make a copy for these guys. I'll let them bring it back to that stupid alliance. Hao Fong said. Charlotte suddenly waved his right hand that was holding the ice soul dagger. Ray's head was instantly separated from his neck. Blood spurted out from his neck like a fountain. The headless body fell to the ground. Charlotte threw Ray's head to the nearest armed man kneeling. Bring your army commander's head and the video copy to the Black Market Alliance's board of directors. If you don't bring your army commander's head and the video to the Black Market Alliance's board of directors, I'll come and find you personally. When that time comes, I won't give you any chances. I'll definitely bring it, the armed man said with a trembling voice. Then, he carried Ray's head. Hao Fong also threw the hard disk with the video copy to the armed man and said fiercely, "There's an additional message. Tell that stupid alliance's board of directors that I, Flaming White Dragon, will invade their nest at any time. Tell them to be careful." Yes, yes, yes. The armed man kowtowed repeatedly. Get lost, Hao Fong shouted. A large group of armed men looked at Charlotte anxiously. All of them looked nervous. Hao Fong's words were obviously useless. They weren't afraid of this funny robot. They were afraid of Charlotte. Charlotte waved his hand. The armed men kneeling on the ground felt as if they had been pardoned. They got up one by one and ran away. The battle ended just like that. However, the resistance army soldiers were still stunned. None of them moved or spoke. They even felt that they were in a dream. When they woke up, everything was just a dream. It wasn't real. Charlotte said, "Commander Kantu, get your men to clean up this place. This place isn't far from my home. I'll smell blood at home." Kananana came back to her senses. However, only one word came out her mouth. "You," Liang Tao said, "what are you guys still standing here for? Brothers, clean up the battlefield. We'll have more food when we're done." It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned more food. As soon as he mentioned more food, a small soldier vomited. Liang Tao frowned. "That's all you've got. Stop dawdling. Get to work." Only then did the resistance army soldiers move to clean up the battlefield. Kantanana walked in front of Charlotte. Her eyes were eager and full of curiosity. "You," Charlotte smiled. "Commander Kantu, what's wrong with you? Are you suffering from a speech disorder? Who are you?" Kananana finally managed to say a complete sentence. Charlotte shrugged. "I told you long ago. I'm also looking for answers." "If it's like that again, you're lying," Kantanana said. Hao Fong came over. "Hey, girl, are you trying to hit on my boss? Give me a number. You're in." Before it could say the exaggerated number, Charlotte slapped its head. "Cut the crap. Let's go home." "Oh." Hao Fong lowered its head and followed Charlotte. "You're leaving just like that?" Kantanana asked. Charlotte stopped. "Oh yeah, I almost forgot to tell you. The missile that Royce brought in is in Hayakawa Seiichi's house. One of my friends has already helped you deal with the guards there. You guys can go and dismantle the missile. Be careful. It's really a missile with a biological warhead." Kantanana gently bit her lips. "You? Thank you. Brother, you've come back, and you've even saved the underground city of the desolate border. No matter what, we have to hold a welcoming dinner for you and celebrate your success. Come to the White House for dinner tonight." "Well, we'll talk about it later. I'm going back to take a shower." Charlotte left with Hao Fong. Kantanana and Liang Tao stood side by side, looking at Charlotte and Hao Fong's backs. Kantanana waited until Charlotte disappeared from her sight before asking, "What did he experience in the Forest of Rest?" "What was that cat?" Liang Tao asked. Kantanana rolled her eyes at Liang Tao. "I'm the one asking you questions." Liang Tao shrugged his shoulders. "I also have a stomach full of questions that I want to understand. You should ask Xiaolei. Tonight is an opportunity. Dress up nicely. Beautiful and sexy women are that guy's only weakness." Kantanana's eyes suddenly turned into a glare. Chapter 1453. Being served by 8 girls while bathing was undoubtedly a dream for a man, but other than a headache, Charlotte felt nothing but a headache. "Master, let me scrub your back. Master, let me put some soap on your back. Master, you're so sturdy. You're the strongest man I've ever seen. Master, the water is getting cold. Can you stand up from the bathtub? I can't see the drain switch. Master, during the time you were gone, we had to milk a lot every day. We made it into cheese. You have to try it later. This was what gave Charlotte a headache. They were still his little cows, only responsible for producing milk. But if they continued to develop like this, they might one day become little cows that warmed his bed. They were still so young. Just thinking about it made him feel like he was committing a crime. More importantly, he had no sense of belonging to this world. He was just a passerby. He would not marry and have children here. While the girls were busy serving him, Charlotte finally made the decision he had thought about in the forest of rest. He said, "Stop fooling around. Look me in the eyes. I have something very important to tell you." The girls of Mu Family Village had always been very obedient to Xiaolei. When he said that, they all stood opposite him and looked at him with a smile, waiting for his instructions. Charlotte's eyes quietly turned black like bottomless black holes. His voice was also full of magic. "You're all Resistance Army mechanics. You know how to produce weapons and repair weapons. You and I are just good friends. You've never given anyone your milk." After a full half an hour, Charlotte left the bathroom. After he left, the girls remained in the bathroom. They would sleep in the bathroom, and when they woke up, they would start a new life. In their new life, Charlotte was only their good friend, but he was not the most important. More importantly, their brains were implanted with a lot of mechanic knowledge. As long as they were given the chance to practice, they would soon become the mechanics that Charlotte wanted them to become. That was the most important thing to them. With Charlotte's current strength, it would only take him 1 or 2 minutes to erase part of their memories. The reason why it took him half an hour was that he had implanted knowledge and skills to make a living in the girls of Mu Village. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. The story of him and the girls in Mu Village had a good ending. After solving the problem of the 8 girls, Charlotte still did not feel relaxed at all, because he still had to face another woman, Polisai. He could not deal with his relationship with Polisai the way he dealt with his relationship with the Mu girls, because Polisai had not only fed him milk, but had also had a flesh-and-blood relationship with him. Longier, who had been waiting in the corridor outside the bathroom, had a smile on her face. "Can't bear to part with those 8 beautiful girls?" Charlotte smiled bitterly. "What's there to be reluctant about? I've always been innocent with them. You're the one with unhealthy thoughts." "What about Polisai?" Longier asked. Charlotte rolled his eyes at Longier. "I'll deal with it, but it's not because of you. I just want to give her a better future." "Tisk, tisk, what are you thinking about? Are all men like this? There's always a high-sounding reason when they want to break up after sleeping with each other." Longier looked at Charlotte with disdain. "Stinky man," Charlotte said. "Then I'll maintain the status quo." Longier then said, "Then don't expect me to milk you in the future." Charlotte, "Go ahead and give her a better future," Longier teased. Charlotte brushed past her. "Stinky woman, you." Longier waved her hand to hit Charlotte, but Charlotte had already dodged. Polisai's room was very fragrant because the mistress of the room had scattered a lot of flower petals. They looked like rose petals, but they weren't. Their colors were brighter than roses, and the fragrance they emitted was more fragrant than roses. The fragrance seemed to contain some special ingredients that made people feel a little excited. The mistress of the room had also just taken a shower. She only had a thin bath towel on her body. The water droplets wetted the thin fabric. An tempting spring scene was revealed under the fabric. The 2 Mount Everest propped up the thin fabric high, giving people a feeling that they were about to come out. Under the plump and perky blue buttocks was a pair of slender, round, and beautiful legs. The length of the bath towel just covered the bottom edge of the blue buttocks. Every step she took had a seductive flash of spring, making people unable to help but be filled with imagination. Asimus's body was real and still so tempting. Charlotte was slightly stunned, and in the blink of an eye, a tent was propped up onto the bathrobe. If he saw a sexy beauty like Polisai and did not raise a flag to salute, it would really be a very rude thing to do. Polisai opened her arms and ran toward Charlotte. The 2 Mount Everest shook and shook as if they would fall at any time. Not only were the Mount Everest shaking, but a plump blue buttocks were also shaking, as wonderful as jelly. "My man." Policy threw herself into Charlotte's arms and hugged Charlotte's neck. The two Mount Everest crashed into Charlotte's chest and flattened. Charlotte had prepared his lines in his heart, but at this moment his heart was filled with wine and honey. Where could he find those lines? He originally had a plan in his mind, but after being squeezed by two Mount Everest, his mind was filled with mountains and rivers and whatnot. How could he find that plan? "I knew you wouldn't abandon me. You would come back. During the time you were away from me, I thought about you every day. I thought about you during the day, and I thought about you in my dreams." Speaking of emotions, Policy suddenly leaned over and kissed Yale's lips. As soon as she moved, the bath towel on Charlotte's body fell off. He took Portia in his arms and went to her bed. The edge of her bed was sprinkled with those exciting petals, but who cared? What he wanted to do now was to do something ruthless to destroy a flower. "My man, let me serve you." Policy looked at Charlotte with loving eyes. In her eyes, Charlotte was an enraged beast who wanted to vent his bestial desires on her body, and that was exactly what he wanted. Charlotte smiled. "No, I'll do it myself today." He tore off the only bath towel on Policy's body, dry with met fire. A meeting of bumpy curves was better than countless things in the world. No matter how big the matter was, it could be discussed later. In the corridor outside the door, Langer tiptoed toward the door. Before she reached the door, a strange sound came from inside. It was the sound of wooden furniture swaying, accompanied by a woman's painful and happy voice. She was also a woman, and she knew what these sounds meant. Her brows immediately furrowed. First, she blushed, then she became angry. Xiaolei promised her that he would break up with Policy after returning to the dungeon in the desolate border. Then he would ask her father, Bluewood, to bring Policy to the settlement built by the Ahemus royal family and let Policy start a new life there. This was what they had agreed on, but what was Charlotte doing now? He was doing Policy. Liar. Pervert. Stinky man. Policy stood outside the door and gritted her teeth as she muttered. The sound in the room was not affected by her at all, and it was in its own rhythm. The sound was high-pitched, low-pitched, mid-pitched, surround, physical, chemical, and everything else. It was simply a symphony of love. Langer soon couldn't listen to it anymore. She coughed hard. Ahem. The sound in the room suddenly quieted down. There's someone outside. Policy was very nervous. Charlotte didn't need to look back to use his X-ray vision to know who was standing outside the door. He smiled bitterly. It's Langer. Hearing the name, Langer, Policy's expression suddenly darkened. She doesn't like me, but I can understand her. She is your fiancée, but you are with me. No woman is willing to accept such a thing. Every time I face him, I feel very guilty. I know it's a mistake for us to be together, but every time I see you, I can't help it. They are right. I'm a very cheap woman. Who said that? I'll smash their mouths. Listen to me. You have never been a cheap woman. You have the right to like the person you want to like, and you also have the right to pursue the life you want. Are you the best man in this world? Only you pity me and treat me well. Don't worry about her. Charlotte didn't want to talk about a heavy topic at this time, so he used a man's unique way to divert her attention. In the end, it only took him a few seconds to succeed. Policy no longer cared about whether she was cheap or not. The voice that came out of her little mouth became that kind of voice that seemed to be in pain, but also seemed to be very happy. The symphony of love began to play again. This time, no matter how much Langer coughed, walked back and forth, or even stomped her feet, she couldn't stop the symphony of love. However, no matter how grand the symphony was, it would come to an end. The passion slowly faded from their bodies, and the man and woman who were hugging each other quietly felt everything about each other, including their body temperature, smell, breath, and emotions. At this time, the man and woman were also lazy, not wanting to move, not wanting to think. They just wanted time to stop in this moment and then be happy forever. After a while, the feeling of happiness completely disappeared from their bodies, and the man and woman returned to reality. They still had to face the problems that they had to face. Charlotte thought to himself, how should I tell her? Sigh, this is so troublesome. Directly hypnotizing her is too cruel, but this is not the way to go on. I have to go to the Heavenly Jewel Master Academy. And after finding that clue, I still have to find the last piece of the box of the world. How can I bring her along? Also, sooner or later, I will leave this world. If I don't end it now, it will be even more cruel to her. Just as Charlotte was having a headache, Policy suddenly said, Xia, let's break up. And Charlotte started, suspecting that he had heard wrongly. Policy bit her lip, looking like she was in pain. During the time you left, Bluewood's dad tried to persuade me many times, and so did Longier. I thought about it for a long time, and I finally understand. I am an Akimis woman, and I cannot survive in the human world. I cannot stand the way humans look at me. You are Longier's fiancé, and it is a mistake for us to be together. Only when I leave you will my conscience not reproach me. I do not want to carry the label of a lowly woman for the rest of my life. I want to follow Bluewood's dad to the Akimis settlement. I want to serve the sky god there until he forgives me. You? Charlotte started, and after a while, he said, have you thought it through? Policy nodded. I have thought it through very clearly. You know the beliefs and traditions of our Akimis people. I have already gone too far on the wrong path, and I cannot go any further. Charlotte somewhat understood. The Akimis people had a strong concept of chastity. A woman would only marry one man in her life, and even if that man died, she would not remarry. Akimis women valued chastity as much as the glory of a warrior. Policy was a widow, but she was with him. This was no longer chastity. Moreover, she had hooked up with Longier's fiancé, which was even more wrong. With Bluewood's dad's mouth, it was not strange for him to use reason to persuade Policy during the time he was not by her side. We will leave tomorrow. Will you remember me? Policy's tears rolled down her cheeks. Charlotte's heart was also filled with sadness. I will remember you. Go there and start a new life. I will give you a large sum of money, and then let Bluewood's dad take care of you. In short, you must live a good life. No, I don't want your money. I will never be able to repay what you give me in this lifetime. Policy's tears flowed even faster. Charlotte grabbed her hand. No matter what I give you, take it, because you're worth it. Policy threw herself into Charlotte's arms again, tears falling one after another. Charlotte gently patted her smooth back, comforting her in this way. He did not expect Policy to break up on her own. This seemed to save him a lot of trouble, but his mood was not relaxed at all. Instead, it was heavy and full of sadness. Let me feed you one last time. Policy raised her head from Charlotte's arms. Charlotte nodded, then moved closer. This was the sad milk of Mount Lamer. Chapter 1454. Since Kong Tu Nana was treating him to a meal, Charlotte had to go. It was not because Kong Tu Nana was beautiful, but because he had a favor to ask of her. That was to bring him to the Heavenly Jewel Academy. After dinner, Xiaolei officially entrusted Gu Kersin to Liang Tao, making Liang Tao also become Gu Kersin's godfather and help take care of this poor girl. After that, he told Kong Tu Nana about going to the Heavenly Jewel Academy in the Oval Office. You want to go to the Heavenly Jewel Academy? Kong Tu Nana was surprised when she heard Charlotte mention it. Are you serious? Charlotte said, Of course I'm serious, and the sooner I leave, the better. Kong Tu Nana was silent for a while before saying, That's troublesome. It changes location every year, and it doesn't inform anyone. The last time I went to the Heavenly Jewel Academy was 2 years ago, which means it has changed location twice. I have to ask personally, but the journey is long, and the road is filled with danger. Now is the time for the development of the new district, and you are putting me in a difficult position. Charlotte smiled. You want me to help you develop this resistance army, and then bring me to the Heavenly Jewel Academy. What kind of person do you think I am? Kong Tu Nana avoided Charlotte's gaze, blushing slightly. That was indeed what she was thinking, but she did not expect Charlotte to see through her thoughts so easily. I am willing to help you. In fact, I have already prepared a development plan for you. Ah, Kong Tu Nana was surprised and excited. Tell me about it. Charlotte said, I have prepared 8 mechanics for you, the 8 girls from the Mu family village. They have already grasped the knowledge and skills of mechanics, and I hope you can accept them. Are you talking about the 8 girls in your family? Charlotte nodded. Yes, I'm talking about them. They have been learning the knowledge and skills of mechanics all this time. I believe that if they are given some time and opportunity, they will become excellent mechanics. Kanta Nana smiled and said, I can accept them. I also believe that they will become excellent technicians, the mechanics you mentioned, right? None of this is a problem, but is this your plan? Do you treat me like a child? Come with me. I'll take you to a place, Charlotte said. Where are you taking me? Kong Tu Nana's heart was filled with guesses. You'll know when you get there. Charlotte pretended to be mysterious. The corners of Kanta Nana's mouth curled up, but she didn't refuse. She followed him out of her office, left the White House, and followed him to the surface city. Along the way, she asked Charlotte several times where he was taking her, but Charlotte refused to tell her. There was no one on the ruined street. The craters and the wreckage of the vehicles seemed to be telling a story. The blue moon in the sky emitted a faint blue light, cold and merciless. Whoosh! A blue shadow flew across the sky, and before Kong Tu Nana could see it clearly, it was already out of sight. Kong Tu Nana suddenly remembered that fat cat, and her skin was covered in goosebumps. She couldn't help but feel nervous. What was that? Screech. A strange sound came from behind her. Kong Tu Nana turned around in a hurry and screamed. Ah, that scary cat was right behind her, waiting for a pair of blue eyes to look at her. Just as she screamed, the cat suddenly opened its mouth and sneered at her. Ah! Kong Tu Nana screamed again and hid behind Charlotte. She was actually quite brave, but facing the head of the Forest of Rest's 4 great beasts, the Rock Spirit, she couldn't muster up any courage. Sam, she's my friend. Don't scare her, Charlotte said. Sam nodded his head. Charlotte suddenly reached out and grabbed Kong Tu Nana's waist. What are you doing? Kong Tu Nana was even more nervous than before. Charlotte smiled. Don't be nervous. I'm just protecting you. Kong Tu Nana looked at Charlotte's hand on her waist, and then looked at his face. She didn't know why, but she felt that this guy was deliberately taking advantage of her. Charlotte didn't explain further. He said to Sam, we can go. Then he raised his hand. Kong Tu Nana was very curious about Charlotte's action, but before she had a chance to speak, Sam leaped up. While its fat body was still in the process of rising, its furry tail wrapped around Charlotte's raised arm, and she and Charlotte soared into the sky. Ah! Kong Tu Nana screamed again, her arms and legs instinctively wrapped around Charlotte. Under the soft pressure, Charlotte's body slightly stiffened, and he said, Don't be nervous, I'll hold your waist. Kanta Nana's long legs clamped down even tighter on him, and her mouth started to fire at Xiaolei. Where exactly do you want to take me? What do you want? Charlotte just smiled. You'll know soon enough. I have acrophobia. Why didn't you say so earlier? Did you ask me? You can relax a little, don't clamp so tight. Who clamped you? Pervert. Sometimes there would be some inexplicable misunderstanding between men and women. Sam flew out of the desolate border city, and then flew in the direction of the Forest of Rest. It was very fast, and the strong wind caused by the flight made Kong Tu Nana's face tremble like waves, and her saliva flew onto Charlotte's face. And her long legs clamped on Charlotte's waist, as if she couldn't wait to break Charlotte's waist. Long legs, soft breasts, and her saliva. Charlotte was very embarrassed. Fortunately, the destination was not far. After leaving the desolate border city, Sam flew about 60 to 70 kilometers in the direction of the Forest of Rest, and then landed. It was a dense forest, but it was not the Forest of Rest, just a forest that grew in the wilderness. Sam landed next to the Huaxia spacecraft that flew out of the Forest of Rest. After landing, it whizzed away. Initially, Kanta Nana still had a stomach full of anger, but after seeing the spaceship, the anger in her stomach disappeared. She was so shocked by the ancient spacecraft that she forgot that her long legs were still clamped on Charlotte's waist, and her hands were still hugging Charlotte's neck. There was not a single gap between her and Charlotte. Of course, there was a gap. If there were no clothes with this position, there would really be no gap. "Hey, Commander Kong 2, we have arrived. Can you let go of me now?" Charlotte was embarrassed by her. Only then did Kong 2 Nana recover her senses, and she quickly jumped down from Charlotte, blushing as she said, "Where did this spacecraft come from?" Charlotte said, "This spacecraft belongs to the ancient Aegis Empire, and it crashed in the Forest of Rest. I repaired it and used it to fly out of the Forest of Rest. It is now called the Huaxia spacecraft. Its flying speed is very fast, and it can send us anywhere in the Hope Star in a day. You want me to take you to the Heavenly Jewel Master Academy?" Xiaolei said, "Yes, my time is very tight. I want to leave as soon as possible, and the sooner the better. Then promise me that you will be the commander-in-chief of the resistance. Promise me, and I will bring you there." Kong 2 Nana said. Charlotte gave a bitter smile. "I have already made this very clear. I will not hurt your feelings, but if you have any needs, I will help you." Kong 2 Nana said, "I know my request is a little overboard, but if I had any other way, I would not do this. The resistance is now in a state of disunity, and the warlords are all fighting for their own benefits. As the commander-in-chief, I am just a decoration to them, or even a joke. They will not listen to any of my orders. I have received intelligence that the Blue Moon people will soon make a big move, and I am worried that they will completely wipe out the resistance. The resistance army that I lead will obviously be the first target, but look at our current situation. We can't even win against the army of the Black Market Alliance, or we have to fight against the Blue Moon people. Of course, I understand your current situation, but even if I am the commander-in-chief of the resistance, the warlords will not listen to me. No, you are different from me. In the battle in the underground city, your name will spread like a storm throughout the entire world. You can use that method to behead Royce of the Black Market Alliance, and they will be afraid of you." Charlotte said, "They will indeed be afraid of me, but you have to know that a rule built on fear will not be stable. They will indeed be afraid of me, but if there is a chance, they will betray me and the resistance. Are you sure you want this kind of unity?" Kong 2 Nana was silent. She wanted to unite all the branches of the resistance, but she had neglected human nature. The warlords were people with vested interests. How could they be willing to spit out the fat meat that was already in their mouths? Xiaolei said, "In this world, strength is the most important thing. Although I won't join the resistance army, I will help you build the resistance army you lead into the strongest and wealthiest resistance army. That is easy for you to say, but I can't do it at all." Kong 2 Nana's eyes flashed with a trace of pain. Charlotte smiled. "This is why I brought you here." Kong 2 Nana looked at Charlotte in confusion. "Follow me." Charlotte walked towards the Huaxia spaceship. The hatch under the spaceship opened automatically, and a large group of engineer robots came out of the hatch. "Captain," the leading engineer robot saluted to Charlotte. "Everything is ready. We will carry out your orders at any time." It was the first engineer robot that Charlotte had personally repaired. Its name was Ant King. It commanded all the engineer robots on the Huaxia spaceship. Charlotte said, "Let's go to the warehouse first, and then take off to Desolate Border City." "Yes." Ant King turned and led the way. Kong 2 Nana said in surprise, "Where did they come from?" "They are the engineer robots on this spaceship. I repaired them, and they're now the crew of this spaceship. But how can they speak Chinese?" "Fortunately, I replaced their language packs." Charlotte led Kong 2 Nana to the entrance of the second floor of the spaceship. Along the way, he told Kong 2 Nana some things about the spaceship, but he only said some things that could be said. He did not mention anything related to Queen of Rest and the World Box. Kong 2 Nana was surprised along the way. This ancient spaceship surprised her, and Charlotte's story also surprised her. But all the surprise she felt along the way could not compare to the surprise she felt when she walked into the warehouse. In front of her were countless energy weapons, as well as weapons manufacturing equipment. With these weapons, the resistance army she led could instantly increase their combat effectiveness dozens of times. What was more important was the equipment to manufacture weapons. With them, the rebel army that she led would be able to develop sustainably and become more and more powerful. Charlotte said, "I prepared these for you." Nana was a little nervous. "We can't afford it. I don't want money." "Then what do you want?" "I don't want anything." Nana was stunned on the spot. If these Akima's servers and equipment were converted into money, it would be a huge fortune. If Charlotte could turn them white, he would definitely become one of the richest people in the world. But he did not want anything, and was giving them to her for free. "You why?" Nana was stunned for a long time before she could speak. Charlotte smiled. "If you really want a reason, you're pretty. That should be fine, right?" Nana was stunned again. She did not know why, but her face was a little red. When Xiaolei saw the blush on her face, he realized that he had made a joke that he shouldn't have at the wrong time. He changed the topic. "I don't want your money. I'm giving these weapons and equipment to you. I only have one condition, and that is to persevere in your beliefs. Fight bravely, chase away the Blue Moon people, and rebuild our civilization." Nana nodded heavily. "Don't worry. We will not disappoint your kindness and your expectations. Then when will you take me to the Heavenly Jewel Academy? Transport these things to the underground city. I'll take you there tomorrow morning," Nana said. A smile appeared on Charlotte's face. He could always get what he wanted, even though Nana, the guide, had to pay a sky-high price. A few minutes later, the Huaxia took off from the ground. When it climbed to a height of 100 meters, it flew towards the desolate city. The reason why Charlotte landed here was that he had just returned and was not clear about the situation in the desolate city. He needed to avoid some risks. After solving the crisis in the underground city, the Huaxia could fly to the desolate city. Its takeoff this time represented hope. Chapter 1455. The Huaxia spacecraft landed in the deserted city. The blue moon in the sky blocked the entire Hope Star, and the surveillance on the ground was at its maximum. The Huaxia came with a super jammer, but it was not any electronic warfare equipment from the Archimedes Empire. Instead, it was the crystal skull that Charlotte had obtained from the Forest of Rest. It had the same mysterious energy as the crystal skull. Even the blue moon in the sky could not monitor the existence of this ancient spacecraft. Otherwise, if it flew out of the Forest of Rest, the Blue Moon people's aerial fleet would probably arrive. The weapons from the vehicles were unloaded from the spacecraft and then entered the underground city through the subway tunnel. There were also weapons production equipment, and so on. There were too many resources. Just unloading and transferring them to the underground city would probably take an entire night. What a prodigal. I can't take it anymore. My heart is dying. Beside the Resistance Army's warehouse, Lanji covered her perky breasts. She looked like she was dying of heartache. A yearly deposit of 300,000 Blue Moon dollars and 1 billion Blue Moon dollars in ransom for the Star of Ice. This amount of money made her develop a greedy habit. Although she did not have to worry about the 300,000 security deposit and the 1 billion ransom that she could never earn in her lifetime, her greedy habit could not be corrected in a day or three. Charlotte had given so many energy weapons and equipment to the Resistance Army. How could she not feel heartache? Moreover, these were relics of the Archimedes Empire's royal family. She had the right to inherit them. Silly. My beautiful boss, you should be worried about that woman, not these resources, Hao Fong, who was standing beside Lanjur, said. Hao Fong, who was standing next to Lanjur, said, "That commander of the resistance. She's so beautiful, and she's the same as my boss. Be careful that she doesn't poach you and seduce my boss in her bed." "Don't call me boss. I'm not your boss." Lanji had never liked Hao Fong. Hao Fong shrugged, but it was actually his entire head. "If you're not boss, why would I waste time talking to you? Idiot." Lanjur opened her mouth to scold him, but she swallowed her words. It was not that she did not want to or dare to. It was because that was what Hao Fong liked and wanted the most. "I don't like this place. Shan Pu," who was wearing a custom-made robe, said in rock spirit language. Neither Lanji nor Hao Fong left it. This was Charlotte's team. There was no spirit of unity at all. They could quarrel for a long time without any reason. However, how could Sui dare to underestimate such a team? Charlotte came over with 8 girls from Mu Village. They chatted as they walked. Big brother Xia, can we really join the resistance army? Mu Kaihong was a little worried and nervous. Charlotte smiled and said, "Don't worry, you guys don't have to be nervous or worried about anything. I've already told Commander Kanto that you guys will join the logistics department of the resistance army and start as new recruits. I believe in your abilities. You guys have been learning mechanic knowledge for such a long time. You guys will definitely become outstanding mechanics." "Thank you, big brother Xia. You've helped us a lot," Mu Xiaohong said. "I feel like we're just like you." Mu Yu slapped her forehead, her face full of confusion. "It's so strange. I clearly have that feeling, but I can't remember anything." Charlotte followed and said, "Don't let your imagination run wild. Do a good job after joining the army. That's the best way to repay me." "We'll definitely do a good job." The girls from Mu Village expressed their stance one after another. Just like that, they became good friends. Charlotte brought the girls from Mu Village to the warehouse, where he saw Kanto Nana and Liang Tao. He had already told Kanto Nana beforehand, so the process of new recruits joining the resistance army was so simple that it only required a nod and a sentence. With a smile on her face, Kanto Nana said to the girls in a very friendly manner, "Welcome to the resistance army. From now on, we'll all be comrades." Liang Tao held Mu Xiang's hand in a very friendly manner. "I'll take good care of you guys and give you the care of a family member." Charlotte said lightly, "Be wary of this uncle. He's a very fickle man. Many women have fallen into his hands." "Huh?" The girls from Mu Village immediately looked at Liang Tao with vigilant eyes. Mu Xiang also hurriedly pulled her little hand away from Liang Tao's hand. Her smiling face turned red. Liang Tao looked at Charlotte speechlessly. "Brother, is there a need to do this?" Charlotte said with a smile, "I'm their big brother. Of course, I have to protect them." Liang Tao smiled. "I understand. Don't worry, I'll take good care of them. The care I'm talking about is real care, not that kind of care. In Gu Kursin, as long as I'm alive, I'll never allow anyone to bully her." "Thank you, brother." Charlotte knew what he was talking about. His heart was filled with gratitude. This was considered as saying goodbye to the girls from Mu Village. When they returned to Ping and residence, Polisai had already packed his things. Lan Mu's father was also there. He was very tactful. "Good son-in-law, you guys chat. I'll go out for a while." He emphasized the word good son-in-law, as if he was reminding Polisai of something. Charlotte said politely, "Thank you." Lan Mu's father left the room, but he did not go far. Instead, he stayed in the corner and waited. Charlotte knew that Lan Mu's father was hiding in the corner and eavesdropping. He wanted to chase him away, but he swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. All good things must come to an end. His and Polisai's story could be considered to have come to an end. Polisai had already made her decision. He had to respect her decision. Polisai looked at Charlotte with a loving gaze. After a long silence, she said, "I'm leaving." Lan Mu's father said that our clansmen will be coming to desolate border cities soon. Charlotte nodded. "Take care. Lanji is a good girl. You have to treat her well." Polisai's voice was filled with sadness. "Although you two are not married yet, an Akimis woman is willing to milk you. That means that she will never accept another man in this life. She has already set her mind on you." Charlotte was slightly stunned. He did not tell Polisai that Lanji was milking him. This secret was either told by Lanji or Lan Mu's father. This seemed to be a very important reason for her decision to break up with him, but it was not important anymore. Polisai suddenly walked over and reached out to hug Charlotte's waist. "Thank you for everything you have given me. I will pray for you in the temple of the sky and ask the god of the sky to bless you." Charlotte's heart was also filled with sadness. He said in her ear, "Live well. Everything will be fine." Polisai nodded and quietly looked at Charlotte. There were tears in the corners of her eyes, and her lips were bright and plump. Charlotte leaned over. He wanted to give her a goodbye kiss. But just as his lips were about to touch Polisai's, Polisai let go of him and took a step back, avoiding his kiss. "We can't do this anymore. I'm leaving." Polisai carried her backpack, looked deeply at Charlotte, and then stepped out of the door. Charlotte watched her leave. When she disappeared at the door, he felt a sense of loss in his heart. His encounter with Polisai, he had never wanted to be with her. But because of various reasons, he and she had a dewy relationship. Even if there were no feelings in the beginning, as time passed, he still had some feelings in his heart. Now that she had left, how could he not feel sad and lost? However, Polisai had left, and he had also been able to relax. He did not have any emotional debts on him now, and he could let go and do what he wanted to do. "Good son-in-law, I'll leave my daughter to you. Take good care of her." Lanmu's father's voice came from the corridor. Charlotte said, "Don't worry, I'll take good care of her. You guys should get together soon. You guys aren't young anymore. I want to be a grandfather as soon as possible. The Achemis Empire also needs a prince to inherit it." Charlotte was speechless. Lanmu's father and Polisai left. Charlotte's vision was penetrating the entire time, and he only looked away when Polisai could no longer be seen. Not long after Polisai left, a new guest came to Peace Curtilage. It was the village chief of Peace Village, Leonai, but she was stopped by Hao Fong, who was guarding the door. "Hey, girl, who are you looking for?" Hao Fong asked, not all polite. Leonai glanced inside the door. "I'm looking for Charlotte." "Why are you looking for my boss?" "I'm his good friend. I'm here to see him." "Go tell him that I'm Leonai." "He'll definitely see me," Leonai said. "I'll ask." Hao Fong's short legs bounced, and his square body flew up with a whoosh, passing through the window on the second floor and entering the room. Charlotte smiled bitterly. "Isn't there a spaceship's communicator?" Hao Fong said, "That's because I'm smart. If you don't want to see her, and your voice comes out through the communicator, she'll be very sad if she hears it." "You actually care about someone?" "All right, go tell her that I'm not here," Charlotte said. "Got it." Hao Fong flew out the window again. A second later, there was the sound of metal hitting the ground. Charlotte covered his eyes. Hao Fong got up from the ground. "My boss isn't here. Where did he go?" Leonai had a disappointed expression. "Tell me, I'll go find him," Hao Fong said. "He went to visit a prostitute." Leonai was speechless. "Go away, flat-chested girl." "My boss likes women with big breasts," Hao Fong said. A mouthful of saliva flew onto Hao Fong's face. Leonai turned around and left. Hao Fong looked back at the window on the second floor. Charlotte bit the bullet and gave Hao Fong a thumbs up. Hao Fong shook his head. Charlotte changed his hand gesture and showed it the shape of a spirit or. Hao Fong jumped up and down on the ground. Charlotte lay on Polisai's bed. Without the shackles of love, he felt really relaxed. But how long could he maintain this single state? Who knew? Chapter 1456. Crackle. A bolt of lightning flashed across the bridge of the Huaxia ship, illuminating the dark night sky and the rolling waves of the sea below. The endless sea. On the map of the Hope Star drawn by humans, this was the name of the sea, which was 500 times the surface area of the Earth. This was the first time Charlotte had seen the sea of the Hope Star. Its vastness and its terrible weather made him feel moved. The new location of the Heavenly Jewel Academy was on an island in the endless sea. This was the result that Kong Tu Nana had found after finding a contact. This result surprised Charlotte. This was a place that even the Blue Moon people were not willing to come to, and the Heavenly Jewel Academy had actually chosen such a harsh environment. However, looking at the problem from the perspective of confidentiality and safety, it was a very smart move. Contanana stood next to the window and looked at the huge waves below. She sighed and said, "I had a dream when I was young. I wanted to sail a sailboat across the endless sea and reach the Great Maha Desert on the other side. I wanted to roast a saloon there." Great Maha Desert? Where did that name come from? Charlotte knew the name of the desert, but he did not know its origin. Chinese was the main language of the human world, and if it was the Han people who named it, it would not have such a name. Great Maha is the name of an explorer. He was also the first person in human history to sail across the endless sea. He discovered the desert, and later generations named it after him, Kong Tu Nana said. What is a salon? Charlotte was very curious about everything in the desert, a type of mollusk that lives in the Great Maha Desert. They have no feet, and they look like snakes, but they are very large and poisonous. They have almost no natural enemies in the Great Maha Desert, so they can be considered the masters of that uninhabited land, Kong Tu Nana said. Charlotte smiled. Sailing a sailboat across an almost impossible sea and roasting such a beast in the desert. Your childhood dream is really strange. But only a girl with such a dream can become the commander-in-chief of the resistance. Kong Tu Nana smiled bitterly. I don't want to be the commander-in-chief of the resistance. What I want to do most is to explore. If we can get rid of the Blue Moon people one day, I will resign and become an explorer. If there's one. Haha, forget it. If I can't even fulfill my first wish, what's the point of talking about personal problems? Charlotte said, don't give up your faith. We will definitely succeed. Kanta Nana glanced at Charlotte. There was something indecipherable in her eyes. But it was only a glance before she shifted her gaze and looked at the tumbling sea. A huge fish suddenly emerged from the surface of the sea, pushing aside the mountain-like waves before diving back into the water. Even Charlotte was shocked by it. The biggest fish he had ever seen, a whale, was only a small fish in front of it. At this time, Sam, who was also on the bridge, suddenly said, the Queen of Rest once told us that there is an existence more powerful than her in this sea. Charlotte's brain finished deciphering the brain waves almost instantly. He was shocked again. He sent a message to Shan Pu, a being more powerful than the Queen of Rest. What is it? Shan Pu shook his head. It didn't say that. It just warned us not to come here. It said it's dangerous. Shan Pu's words filled Charlotte's imagination with endless imagination. An existence more powerful than the Queen of Rest. What would it be? Living in the sea? Could it be a fish? Or was it a tree growing in the sea? What did it say? Kanta Nana asked curiously. She was still afraid of Shan Pu, but she had already learned its identity from Charlotte. It was the leader of the 4 beasts in the Forest of Rest, the Rock Spirit. Charlotte said, Shan Pu told me to tell you that it's best to give up your dream. It said that there are creatures more powerful than her in this sea, and sailing in this sea is undoubtedly suicide. Kana Nana smiled at Shan Pu. Thank you, but everyone will die one day. Dying while pursuing your dream is not necessarily a bad ending. Shan Pu said to Charlotte, what is this stupid woman talking about? Charlotte smiled bitterly. She said your hairstyle is very handsome. Shan Pu used his claws to rub the hair on his head. She has good taste. Charlotte was speechless. Lan Ji walked into the bridge. Dinner is ready. Let's eat. Oh, I see. Charlotte responded. Kanta Nana said, so early? I'm not even hungry yet. Lan Ji's mouth slightly curled. I didn't prepare dinner for you. You can cook whatever you want. I only prepared dinner for my fiancée. I'm sorry. You? Kanta Nana's face was full of surprise. Charlotte smiled bitterly. It's complicated. I'll tell you later when I have the chance. Lan Ji said, are you still eating? Come with me. It won't taste good when it's cold. Coming. Xiao Lei followed him and walked over. Lan Ji brought Charlotte to her cabin and said, turn around. How can I squeeze when you look at me? Charlotte was slightly stunned. I thought you were done. So it's freshly squeezed, Lan Ji said. Charlotte was speechless. Lan Ji opened the zipper and glared at Charlotte. Charlotte turned around as well. Only then did she grab a plump one and start milking it into Charlotte's bottle. The Blue Princess Akimis blue milk dripped into the bottle bit by bit. There is also the sound of milking and the sound coming from Lan Ji's small mouth. Charlotte could not control his brain and fantasize about messy things. Lan Ji quickly finished a bottle and handed it to Charlotte over his shoulder. Drink it quickly. There's still another bottle after this one. Thank you. Charlotte took the bottle and poured it into his mouth. As soon as the Blue Princess Akimis blue milk entered his body, The branding power instantly swarmed over, and the cosmic brand lurking in his soul emerged again. His body quickly entered a godlike transcendent state. He would experience this every time he drank Lan Ji's milk, so he was already used to it. After drinking the bottle of milk, his branding power energy field suddenly captured an energy resonance. It was about 10 meters away from him. Even though he could not see through the hull of the ship, he still knew what was happening. It was the resonance of the crystal skeletal hand stored in the equipment bag, and it was very strong. The crystal skeletal hand was an extremely powerful and magical existence. Under normal circumstances, the power of his imprint would be restricted after leaving the underground city of the border wasteland. However, in this spaceship, the crystal skeletal hand released an energy field to protect itself. In this energy field, his branding power was not suppressed by the blue moon. In other words, even if he left this spaceship, as long as he had the crystal skeletal hand, he could still use the branding power. The crystal skeletal hand's resonance gave Charlotte an idea. The crystal skeletal hand's resonance is so strong this time. Could it be that my branding power has become stronger again? If that's the case, I wonder if I can establish a connection with it while drinking milk and use the powerful power it contains. This thought lingered in his mind even after he handed him the second bottle of milk. He couldn't get rid of it. Only by drinking Archime's perfect princess blue milk would he become stronger. Only then would he be able to establish a connection with the crystal handbone and use the great power contained in the crystal handbone. To Xiaolei, this was always a disadvantage, because when facing a strong enemy, he could not always have Lan Ji's milk to drink, right? After drinking the second bottle of milk, his extraordinary state became even stronger. Xiaolei showed symptoms of being drunk on milk again. Of course, he was not really drunk, but the feeling that his soul was about to fly out of his body was exceptionally strong. He needed to lie down and digest the extraordinary evolutionary energy contained in the blue milk of the perfect princess of Archimedes. "I want to go back and lie down for a while," said Charlotte. "Langer," he said, "just lie here for a while. I'll help you to the bed." Charlotte wanted to decline, but she had just squeezed 2 bottles of milk for him. If he didn't even want to lie on her bed, it would be a bit unreasonable. Lanji, or helped Charlotte to her bed and helped Charlotte take off his shoes. Charlotte was very embarrassed and said, "I can do it myself." Langer helped Charlotte take off his shoes and scolded him. "Why didn't you feel embarrassed when I squeezed you some milk? Now that I'm helping you take off your shoes, you're embarrassed?" Xiaolei shut his mouth. He had been fed by others. Langer took off Charlotte's shoes, turned around, and walked out. She said in a low voice, "Drinking milk in a bottle will make you drunk. If you drink it yourself, won't you be drunk to death? You're such a good-for-nothing." Several black beads of sweat suddenly appeared on Charlotte's forehead. After Lanji left, Charlotte closed his eyes and ran the power of the imprint to capture every subtle change in his body. Did the evolution of his body improve? Did the power of the imprint improve? He really wanted to know the answer, but whether it was the evolution of his body or the power of the imprint, there was no measurable value or standard. All he could get was a feeling of improvement and becoming stronger. This time, the feeling was stronger than before. Time passed little by little, and after an unknown amount of time, Charlotte walked out of the symptoms of milk drunk, and his extraordinary state also disappeared. Under normal circumstances, he would return to his usual state. But this time, it was not normal, because he clearly felt that although the emerging universe imprint had become dim, it did not disappear. This discovery made Charlotte stunned on the spot. What did this mean? Had he evolved to some kind of critical point? If the universe imprint existed in the body like an organ and represented a spiritual boundary point, then what would it be like to go over this critical point? Charlotte's heart was filled with endless imagination. "Boss!" A voice suddenly came from outside the cabin door. "We're here. Quickly open it and take a look." Chapter 1457. A small island appeared outside the window of the Huaxia spaceship. It was a very small island with a barren extinct volcano. The primitive forest that grew around the volcano was the entirety of this small island. Its area was less than 1 square kilometer. Charlotte did not see any buildings on the island, let alone a college. Just as Charlotte was about to use his X-ray vision to scan the island, Nana said, "Mr. Xia, I just compared it with a navigation map. It should be here." Charlotte said, "Then let's go down and take a look." Nana said, "Only the two of us can go down. Your people have to leave for now." The contact person said very clearly that I can only bring one person in. "Okay." Charlotte turned around and said, "Ant King, drive the spaceship to the nearby island and wait for my signal there to pick me up." "Yes, Captain." The Ant King immediately carried out Charlotte's orders and began to search the nearest island. Langer walked over, looking unhappy. "Can I go in too?" Nana said, "Of course, no non-human has ever entered that place until now." She emphasized the word non-human, as if to remind Langer of something. Langer snorted coldly. "If you don't want to go, then don't go." She moved closer to Charlotte, and her towering breasts were almost pressed against Charlotte's chest. She reached out to adjust the collar of Charlotte's jacket and deliberately said in a very gentle voice, "My man, I'll wait for you on the spaceship. You're not very smart. You gave away my dowry worth hundreds of millions, so you have to be careful. Don't be cheated by other women." Charlotte was speechless. "Lanji," those words were obviously meant for Nana. Nana frowned. "Mr. Xia, we should leave." Charlotte nodded. "Okay." Lanji grabbed Charlotte's arm. "We'll leave later." Charlotte looked at Lanji. "Is there anything else?" Lanji said, "I'll prepare something delicious for you to eat on the road." Charlotte nodded again with a smile on his face. "And thank you." He knew very well what kind of delicious food Lanji was going to prepare for him, and he could never refuse that kind of delicious food. The magic of Princess Artemis, blue milk, had long been manifested. His universal imprint had not disappeared until now, and it was working like an organ. It guided the power of the brand through his body, just like how the heart guided the circulation of blood. The universe imprint had truly appeared. Although he had not experienced a battle, he was confident that his strength would definitely soar. If he were to fight Lon Tan again now, he wouldn't dodge anymore. He would swing his fists and beat him up. Under such circumstances, how could he refuse Lanji's milk? However, Nana obviously did not know this secret. She frowned. "Mr. Xia, is there nothing to eat in the Heavenly Jewel Academy? There is no need to prepare any food. I believe that you will be able to eat delicious food in the Heavenly Jewel Academy that you can't find anywhere else." Charlotte smiled. "Let Lanji prepare something for me. I like to eat what she prepares for me." Lanji looked at Nana with a contemptuous look. Nana snorted softly, avoiding Lanji's provocative look. If it was a battle just now, then Lanji was obviously the winner. After a quarter of an hour, Charlotte brought the 2 bottles of milk that Langer had squeezed for him to the island. The place where they landed was the peak of the extinct volcano in the center of the island. The Huaxia put down Charlotte and Nana, then turned and left. Charlotte watched the Huaxia leave. In his field of vision, there was a violent storm, lightning, and thunder. The ancient ship disappeared from sight in the blink of an eye. Nana squatted behind a rock to hide from the wind and rain, but she was still freezing, shivering in the cold. Charlotte took off his coat, draping it over Nana's body. Once again, the blue tank battle armor was revealed. It was tight, like another layer of skin. "If you give me the coat, what are you going to do?" Nana wanted to return the coat to Charlotte. Charlotte pressed the coat on her. "You can put it on. I'm not cold." He then tried to divert Nana's attention. "Commander Kongtu, what do you think we should do if no one comes to pick us up and we are abandoned on this island?" Nana stared at Charlotte. "Just the 2 of us?" Charlotte nodded. "Yes, just the 2 of us." Nana thought for a moment. "Are you hinting at something?" Charlotte, a man and woman alone on an uninhabited island. What would happen in the end? It was not difficult to guess. A lonely man, a lonely woman. Since they had nothing better to do, They could only do each other. Therefore, it was normal for Nana to interpret Charlotte's joke as a hint. Moreover, in her mind, Charlotte was a pervert and a pervert. D*M in it. Didn't you say someone would come to pick us up? Nana began to change the topic. If the contact person gave us the wrong coordinates, we'll be in trouble. Charlotte awakened the ability of his eyes and scanned the forest around the extinct volcano. How did you become the fiancé of that Akimis woman? Nana changed the topic. I'm not her fiancé. I needed a safe identity in the Akimis tribe in the Forest of Rest, so I pretended to be her fiancé. I had a deal with her, but I can't reveal the details, Charlotte said as he continued to scan the forest. So that's how it is. Nana's lips curled into a smile. Charlotte's gaze shifted to a hillside, and a black shadow suddenly entered his sight. Soon, a few more black figures appeared in different positions. His eyes locked onto one of them, and he instantly completed his scan. The shadow that was moving quickly toward the hilltop was a man about his age. The young man was wearing a strange fiber armor. The fibers seemed to be synthetic, but it also seemed to be natural plant fiber. Not only did he have human firearms, but he also had energy weapons and a sword that was at least a meter long. It had no scabbard, and the blade was covered in mysterious and complicated patterns. It looked like an ancient sword. Xiao Lei's gaze then swept over the other black figures. They were all wearing the same equipment: fiber armor, firearms, energy weapons, and cold weapons. The difference was that they had cold weapons. Some were swords, some were sabers, and some were stilettos. At the same time, he noticed a woman. She was petite, and her movement speed was extremely fast. Especially her chest, she gave off a cumbersome feeling. She reminded him of one of his female friends back on Earth, Akiko Tsukino. However, she was not a pure Asian, but a mixed blood of Caucasians and Asians. About 70% of them were Asians. But she looks like she's serious. Nana did not notice the warriors surrounding them from the hillside. Now was not the time to talk about that. Charlotte said, I remember you mentioned some branded warriors. Are they the ones guarding the Heavenly Jewel Academy? Yes, every branded warrior is very strong. Nana suddenly reacted. Are they here? Charlotte nodded. You will see them soon. Nana stood up from behind the boulder that she was hiding from the wind and rain, looking into the distance. However, the light was just too dim, and the wind and rain were raging. She was unable to see anything more than a few dozen meters away, let alone the branded warriors that were surrounding them. Charlotte's gaze was locked on the branded warriors, but very quickly, a strange phenomenon occurred. When the branded warriors were within 100 meters of him, they suddenly disappeared. They were like phantoms that were blown away by the strong wind and drenched by the torrential rain. In Charlotte's mind, he replayed the image of a warrior suddenly disappearing. In his mind, the fiber armor of the warrior had suddenly changed color, becoming a mixture of colors that blended in with the surroundings. The fiber armor of the warrior actually had the ability of a chameleon. The warriors suddenly turned invisible, and with their speed, even Charlotte could not see them. However, in front of him, nothing could become invisible. His universal brand shuddered, and the power of the brand was released in an instant, covering an area of 500 square meters. This process was like mercury spilling onto the ground. In the past, when he released the power of the brand to create an energy field, the movement of the power of the brand did not follow any rules. Every time it was released, there would be different changes, just like how the wind blew the mist away. However, this time, with the existence and effect of the universal brand, the power of the brand was like a star releasing light and heat, appearing in an instant. Moreover, it was in the shape of an omnidirectional half circle. The invisible warriors did not appear in his line of sight, but they appeared in his mind. The four warriors had already advanced to a distance of only 50 meters from him. The oldest man, who looked to be in his 50s, pointed at Charlotte and Nana's position, and then quickly made a tactical hand signal to surround them from all sides. The other two warriors nodded and quickly spread out. In less than 10 seconds, they appeared in 3 different directions. The 4 warriors quickly pounced toward Charlotte and Contanana. This time, their speed was several times faster than before. It would not be an exaggeration to describe their speed as wind. Charlotte's brow furrowed slightly, his heart filled with curiosity. What were these fellows trying to do? In truth, when he had discovered the 4 warriors, he had been on guard, but now he did not. The reason was simple. If they were enemies and wanted to attack, they would not have needed to advance to such a distance. They could have opened fire from 100 meters away. In the blink of an eye, the 4 warriors closed in. Charlotte was in a difficult position. He had discovered them long ago, and it would not be difficult for him to subdue them. However, did he really have to do that? Where? Contanana still did not discover anything, and she seemed rather agitated. Didn't you say you saw some warriors? Charlotte gave a bitter smile. Since when did I say I saw any warriors? I just wanted to ask you what the branded warriors of the Heavenly Jewel Master Academy are like. I didn't see them. I looked for a long time and didn't see anything. So you lied to me. Contanana squatted down unhappily, continuing to hide behind the boulder to avoid the wind and rain. At the same time, she sneered at the man beside her. You have a bad habit of lying. Charlotte just smiled and did not explain. He had only done this because he wanted to hide his strength. SSSSS. A ray of light suddenly shot out from the howling wind and rain. Chapter 1458. It was a flying dagger. Even as it was flying through the air, Charlotte's gaze had locked onto it, and he did not dodge. Asterisk ding. Asterisk a crisp sound rang out, and sparks flew from the collision of metal and rock. The flying dagger brushed past Charlotte's face, stabbing into the rock behind him. This was the reason why he did not dodge. As soon as his gaze locked onto the flying dagger, his brain had already calculated its trajectory. This was just a scare attack, not a real attack. The flying dagger fell from the rock, landing at Contanana's feet. She was startled and instinctively stood up, pulling out a handgun from her waist. 4 warriors suddenly appeared, guns in hand, standing about 10 meters away from Charlotte and Contanana. Put down your weapons, the older warrior shouted. Contanana started slightly, putting down the handgun in her hands. She said loudly, I'm the commander-in-chief of the resistance, Contanana. I have permission to visit. Do not fire. The only female amongst the 4 took off her helmet, revealing a beautiful face with a smile. Big sis Nana, it's been 2 years since we last met. You seem to have lost weight. Contanana finally saw the female warrior's face clearly. She laughed out loud and strode over to hug the female warrior. So yeah, I missed you so much. I never expected you to pass the test and become a branded warrior. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations, Suya. With such an outstanding big sis like you, how can I not work hard? The woman called Suya said with a smile. However, the corner of her eyes was looking at Charlotte. Everyone loved beauty, and if a man was good-looking, it was normal for a stranger to look at him. These 4 warriors were indeed the branded warriors of the Heavenly Jewel Master Academy. The other 3 branded warriors also took off the helmets of their fiber armor. The older branded warrior had a squarish face and thick eyebrows, with an upright and plain-spoken air about him. The other 2 were in their 20s, one with dark yellow skin and a muscular build. The other was a Caucasian with blonde hair and blue eyes. He was tall but gave off a very agile feeling. Sister Nana, let me introduce you. Shuya pointed at the older branded warrior and said, This is our captain, Huang Kai. Huang Kai gave Contanana a slight nod. Shuya pointed at the dark-skinned youth and said, Ma Kuan. She then pointed at the Caucasian youth and said, Lampard. Ma Kuan and Lampadelvi also nodded at Contanana. Contanana said politely, Hello, it's time for you to introduce us. This is? Shuya's gaze officially shifted to Charlotte. Charlotte, Contanana said, He's my friend. I have already obtained permission to bring him to the Heavenly Jewel Master Academy. She smiled. I wonder if any of you have heard of him? Of course we have. Shuya said, "We received intelligence that he beheaded Royce, the army commander of the Black Market Alliance's Armored Legion, in the underground city at the border. He also killed Blackbeard in your office. Am I right?" Kongta Nana smiled and said, "You are right. Every word is correct. This friend of mine is very powerful. However, the information you have is not complete. Let me tell you." Before Kongtu Nana could finish, the dark-skinned Ma Kuan interrupted her. "Commander Kongtu, aren't you exaggerating your friend a little too much? Our information might not be complete, but just now, I tested your friend's skills. I threw out a flying dagger, but he did not react at all. We have already gotten so close, and he did not even notice. No matter how powerful he is, he can't be that powerful, right?" Kongta Nana said, "Friend, I do not need to lie about such matters. This friend of mine is extremely important to the fate of our tribe. That is why I brought him here." "Huh, he's extremely important to the fate of our tribe?" The white youth, Lampard Delway, laughed. "That is even more exaggerated. Commander Kongtu, we respect women like you, but if you keep bragging about your friend, that is not good. You can't treat us like fools, right?" Kongta Nana shrugged, unable to hide her gloomy mood. She had never thought of bragging about Charlotte, but Ma Kuan and Lampard Delway, the two branded warriors, kept saying that she was bragging about Charlotte, which made her feel very awkward. This kind of thing did not seem to have any reason, but it was not strange at all. Kongtu Nana praised Charlotte, and Shuya seemed to have a good impression of Charlotte. For Ma Kuan and Lampard Delvey, who were equally outstanding, this was a stimulus. They couldn't avoid the nature of men. They couldn't help but want to show off in front of beautiful women. They wanted to be the one who attracted the opposite sex the most. A woman's good looks would attract attention, but a man's good looks would sometimes be a problem. The senior Huang Kai did not speak, just observing Charlotte quietly. Charlotte did not speak as well, as if what was happening had nothing to do with him. The atmosphere on the crater became a little awkward. "How about this?" Ma Kuan said. "The new rule for entering the Heavenly Jewel Academy is not fixed. The visitor has to show his power first." Kongta Nana was clearly on his fixed list, but Charlotte was not. He wanted to visit the Heavenly Jewel Academy, and he had to show his power. "Mr. Xiao?" Ma Kuan smiled and said, "Why don't we play a little? If you can beat me, I'll bring you into the Heavenly Jewel Academy." Charlotte finally spoke, a faint smile on his face. "This Broma, I did not know that there was such a rule for visiting the Heavenly Jewel Academy. You are all branded warriors, the best of the best. I'm sure there aren't many who can beat you, right? If you can't, then you can't even enter the Heavenly Jewel Academy." Ma Kuan gave a cold humph. "Are you afraid?" Charlotte did not get angry at all. "I'm not afraid. I'm just being reasonable." Lampard Delvey said, "Mr. Xia, different people have different standards for visiting the Heavenly Jewel Academy. If you are a scientist, you don't have to beat anyone to get in. However, Commander Kongtu said that you are the strongest warrior, so your standards will definitely be different." Huang Kai finally spoke. "Mr. Xia, we're not trying to make things difficult for you. We know Commander Kongtu. She led the resistance against the Blue Moon Empire, and she is a woman worthy of our respect. However, she might have been tricked by some pretense and brought some people who do not have the qualifications to enter the Heavenly Jewel Academy. Do you understand what I mean?" Charlotte spread his hands. "All right, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. I am an outsider, and I will follow your rules. However, how do I win against this Broma?" "Don't call me Broma. We're not close." Ma Kuan stood in front of Charlotte. "The standards are simple. If you can defeat me, you will have one. However, I hope that you will be careful about what is about to happen, because if you fail, the consequences will be severe." Charlotte furrowed his brow slightly. "How severe?" Ma Kuan said. "The Heavenly Jewel Academy is the highest secret of the human race. Once we confirm that you do not have the qualifications to enter, and you know our current location, in order to prevent the secret from being leaked, we will." He paused before continuing. "Kill you." "Ah." Kongta Nana was instantly nervous. "How can you do that? Do you know how much he has helped our resistance? Without him, we would have been wiped out by the armored troops of the Black Market Alliance. Huang Kai said, "Commander Kong Tu, you have your reasons, and we have our rules. I hope that you will not break them. Otherwise, you will lose the right to visit the Heavenly Jewel Academy." You. Kong Tu Nana was instantly exasperated. Shuya said, "Sister Nana, what are you worried about? If what you said is true, even if this Mr. Xia is unable to defeat Ma Kuan, he will not lose, and even a draw will be considered a pass." Kong Tu Nana was about to say something, but Charlotte interrupted her. "Commander Kong Tu, that's enough. This is their territory, and we have to follow their rules. Don't worry about me. I'm not worried about you," Kong Tu Nana said. She was really not worried about Charlotte at all. She was just angry at the branded warrior's actions. Perhaps it really was a new rule, but she did not know about it. But she was very sure that this kind of method made people very uncomfortable. Charlotte gave a bitter smile before stretching his body. "I don't have time to watch you act." Ma Kuan suddenly pounced forward, a fist flying towards Charlotte's face. His fist carried a scorching hot aura, as if it was a red-hot iron. Charlotte could clearly sense the energy emanating from Ma Kuan's body, and it was actually very similar to his own branded power, and it was very strong. The branded warriors, the warriors who guarded humanity's last sacred land, could not possibly be a weakling. Charlotte's feet touched the ground, as if his body was weightless. In an instant, he floated a few meters back, dodging Ma Kuan's fist. "You are quite agile." Ma Kuan pounced forward again. Before he reached Ma Kuan, he suddenly leapt into the air, both legs kicking continuously. The speed of his kicks was extremely fast, and even in the midst of the violent storm, one could feel the heat from his legs, as well as the residual afterimages in the air. Charlotte retreated again. "Coward! How long can you dodge?" Ma Kuan's face was full of disdain, his fists and legs dancing, as if a net was covering Charlotte. Charlotte continued to dodge. The current battle gave people the impression that Ma Kuan was strong and Charlotte was agile, but he was not Ma Kuan's match. Charlotte did not dare to fight Ma Kuan head-on, as if that happened, this battle would be over, and the loser would be Charlotte. However, the actual situation was not like that, as Charlotte felt something familiar from Ma Kuan's body. energy. Energy. He was very familiar with this energy, and he understood its nature. It was the evolutionary path that Sitab and Kasha Ruiz had taken, and he had walked on that path before. Later on, he started the evolutionary path of drinking milk and slowly corrected it. As such, how could he not be familiar with this energy? What surprised him was that, on the way to the desolate border city, he had saved the biological scientist of the Heavenly Jewel Academy, Hani Fei, and from him, he had found out some information related to it, which was that it had not been researched yet. The professor who researched was already dead, and he had even stolen the experiment record from Blackbeard's safe and passed them to the Resistance Army and Hani Fei. So, why would Ma Kuan have energy on him? This was strange. "How long are you going to hide? Coward!" Ma Kuan scolded. Charlotte suddenly stopped dodging. Chapter 1459. Lie down. Ma Kuan, who had finally found an opportunity to attack, immediately rushed forward. After taking 2 steps, he stomped heavily on the ground, and his whole body was like a spear that had been thrown out, stabbing towards Charlotte. His spearhead was his right fist. This punch, the heat emitted from his fist was even more intense, as though it could evaporate the rainwater that had fallen on his fist. How could he be so ruthless? Charlotte's eyebrows twitched slightly. This time he did not dodge, but instead sent his fist forward. Suya, Lampa Delvi, and Huang Kai revealed expressions of shock. In the eyes of the 3 branded warriors, Charlotte's actions were undoubtedly extremely stupid. They seemed to have predicted the result, which was that Charlotte's hand and arm would break, and then his whole body would fly at least 20 to 30 meters away, unable to get up. Boom! The shockwave from the collision of energy shot out from between their fists, and then shot out in all directions. Kacha! Almost at the moment when the two fists collided, the sound of bones breaking could be heard from between their fists, and that sound made one's hair stand on end. Someone flew up and flew 20 to 30 meters away. He landed heavily on the ground, unable to get up. The predictions of the three branded warriors had come true, and it was very accurate. But there was one thing wrong, and that was that the person who had broken his hand and flew 20 to 30 meters away, unable to get up again, was not Charlotte, but Ma Kuan. Ma Kuan spat out a mouthful of blood. The three branded warriors were dumbfounded. The battle had ended just like that, and the dust had settled, but they were unwilling to believe that it was real. Charlotte said calmly, "Did I pass the test?" No one spoke to him. Contanana said, "I've said it before. I'm not worried about him at all. Do you understand now? Sometimes I think he's a monster." Suya then regained her senses. Who exactly is he? Contanana smiled bitterly. "I want to know the answer too, but you don't have to worry. He's not a bad person, and he's definitely not our enemy." Huang Kai and Lampard Delvey went to check on Ma Kuan's condition. Ma Kuan was indeed strong. His finger bones were shattered, and the bones in his forearm were broken, but he did not even make a sound. He didn't even let Lampard help him up and got up on his own. He stared straight at Charlotte, his eyes filled with unwillingness and confusion. Until now, he still did not understand why he had been defeated so casually and so miserably. Charlotte walked over with an apologetic smile on his face. "I'm sorry, Brother Ma. I used too much force. Are your injuries all right?" Ma Kuan stared at Charlotte. His mouth seemed to be stuffed with something, and he couldn't say a word. His entire right arm was almost crippled, and this guy actually asked if he was okay. If this was fine, then what would be considered fine? "Did I pass the test?" Charlotte asked again, this time looking at Huang Kai. "I lost." Ma Kuan finally said this sentence, but it was only this one sentence. "Mr. Xia, you passed the test." Huang Kai said, "Follow me." "Thank you. Please lead the way," Charlotte said, before following the four branded warriors down the hill. Kantu Nana and Suya were at the back of the group, purposely slowing down their pace. The two of them were at the back of the group, whispering to each other. He actually defeated Ma Kuan with just one punch. I don't dare to imagine it. I feel that his power is even stronger than our military officer Tang Sheng. Suya said. Kantanana lowered her voice. "You didn't see him on the battlefield. That's what I call scary. Sister Nana, who is he to you? You actually dared to be his guarantor. If there's a problem with his identity or his motives, you will be implicated. You know the Heavenly Jewel Academy's determination and methods to deal with traitors. I don't know why, but I'm worried for you." Suya's voice was soft. However, Kantanana did not seem to care. "I know what you want to say, but I don't have that kind of relationship with him that you think I have. I only know that it is extremely important to the fate of our entire human race, and he should be here. I am willing to take any risk for him." "Really? There's no relationship at all? If you insist on a relationship, and comrades, friends." "We're very good friends," Kangtu Nana said. The two women's conversation entered Charlotte's ears without missing a single word, and Charlotte felt a sense of trouble in his heart. He had come here to find that clue, and in order to achieve that goal, he might have to use some extreme methods. However, if his actions brought Kantanana any trouble, it would not only be a lie to her, but also a form of harm. The three male branded warriors walked at the front of the group, with Ma Kuan hugging his right arm. His expression was one of pain, but he did not make a sound. Ma Kuan and his right arm once again brought Charlotte's thoughts back to the problem. Isn't the AE energy not yet developed? This Ma Kuan actually has the AE energy, and the other three also have it. What is going on? Could it be that Hani Fei is lying to me? Impossible. I've captured his thoughts before, and he did not lie to me. If he did not lie to me, then I'm afraid he's been lied to. To even lie to his own people. What kind of place is this Heavenly Jewel Master Academy? Charlotte's mind was filled with questions, one after another. Amidst the questions, Charlotte's universal brand shuddered slightly. The power of the brand swept out like quicksilver, silent and undetectable. Everything within a 500-meter radius was under his absolute control. Everyone's brain waves were quickly captured, and a lot of information appeared in Charlotte's mind. How could that fellow defeat me with a single punch? How'd he do it? Who is he? I can't accept this. I can't accept this. If I have the chance, I will definitely regain the glory that I lost today. I will defeat him. I will definitely defeat him. This was Ma Kuin's brain activity. Although on the surface he did not show anything, losing openly, but in his heart, it was clear that he did not think that way. This Ma Kuin was actually a two-faced person. Luckily, I did not take action just now. Ma Kuin's skills are about the same as mine. If it was me who took action just now, I'm afraid I would end up the same way as him. Ma Kuin wanted to show off in front of Suya, but this time he lost more than he gained. Ha ha ha! This was Lampard Delvy's brain activity. This fellow was gloating. Is this Charlotte really as powerful as the legends say? What kind of power does he have in his body? When I return, I will definitely talk to Dean Roland and see what he has to say. He definitely knows something. This little brat is just too strange. I have to keep a close eye on him. This was Huang Hai's brain activity. His status was different, and his thoughts were different as well. The brain waves captured from behind and behind were completely different. This Charlotte is quite good-looking. What kind of leather armor is he wearing? It's like his skin. When I return, I will ask him where he bought it. If the price is right, I will buy one too. Yes, Sister Nana said that she was just a normal friend with him, but I don't believe her. If he was just a normal friend, would Sister Nana take on such a huge risk for him and be his guarantor? This was Su Ya's brain activity. Hopefully there will be no accidents this time, or else I will be in deep trouble. This was Kong Tu Nana's brain activity. Her heart was filled with worry. Everyone was thinking about different things, but there was one thing in common, and that was that these people's thoughts were all related to him. After grasping these people's thoughts, Charlotte had some understanding of these four branded warriors. The Caucasian youth, Lampard Delvey, was a little scheming, but not dangerous. Ma Kuin was narrow-minded, liked to show off, and would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. He was a two-faced person, so he was a simple and pure girl, and she was not dangerous. Amongst the four branded warriors, the most dangerous person was not Ma Kuin, but Huang Kai. Huang Kai was a scheming person, and he had to be careful of him. Walking down the hill, Huang Kai stopped in front of a huge boulder. Before Huang Kai could do anything, Charlotte had already discovered the truth. It was not a real boulder, but a man-made boulder with a 90% degree of realism. If not for the fact that his eyes were different from ordinary people, he might not even know that it was a man-made boulder when he passed by. When Huang Kai began to operate, Xiaolei had the urge to look behind the rock, but he suppressed this urge in the blink of an eye. The Heavenly Jewel Academy was not an ordinary place, and the branded warriors guarding this place had energy, and there was a high risk of being discovered if he used his energy here. The huge boulder moved aside, revealing a tunnel. It was not a man-made tunnel, but a natural volcanic karst cave. The karst cave was winding, and there were many forks along the way, giving the impression that it was a natural maze. In the karst cave and the forks, Charlotte saw many surveillance cameras, and there were no blind spots. The place was heavily guarded. Under Huang Kai's lead, Charlotte walked out of the complicated cave maze and arrived at the center of the mountain. In that instant, his field of vision widened, and a huge, oval-shaped karst cave appeared in his vision. The oval-shaped karst cave was shaped like a beehive, with two small ends and a big middle. The surrounding walls were filled with caves of various sizes, and lights shone through the caves. Some were classrooms, some were laboratories, some were offices, and some were libraries. The first impression that this place gave him was that it was a higher education institute. Every year, the Heavenly Jewel Academy would change locations and would never stay in the same place for more than a year. As such, they would not build permanent buildings. From this angle, it was not strange that the Heavenly Jewel Academy would settle down in this dormant volcano. This is the Heavenly Jewel Academy, humanity's last hope. Huang Kai introduced to Charlotte. Charlotte smiled, pretending to be polite as he said, "What a magnificent sight! In my heart, the Heavenly Jewel Academy is like a holy land, and I have long wanted to come here to take a look, but I have never had the chance. Suya, bring Commander Kong 2 and Mr. Xia to rest first. I will go talk to the director and see if he has any arrangements." Huang Kai did not want to speak much with Charlotte, and with just a few words, he threw Charlotte to Suya. "All right," Suya replied, before turning to Charlotte and Kong to Nana. "Sister Nana, Mr. Xia, please follow me. I will bring you to a place to rest, and you can have a hot bath and some food." Charlotte smiled at Suya. "Thank you." Chapter 1460. After Suya settled Kongtu Nana in a karst cave room, she brought Charlotte to another karst cave room. The karst cave was very small, and there was a fork that led to an unknown place. There were beds, tables, and chairs in the karst cave, as well as a place for people to take a bath and relieve themselves. These furniture gave the karst cave a little room. Otherwise, Charlotte would feel that he was a cave-dwelling ape. "Mr. Xia, please rest here for a while," Suya said. Charlotte smiled at him. "Thank you, Miss Suya. You're welcome." Suya also smiled at Charlotte, and two small and cute dimples appeared on her pretty face. These two dimples made her not look like a powerful branded warrior, but just a beautiful and ordinary woman. When he first saw her face, Charlotte thought of Akiko Tsukino, but that seemed to be only because of her breasts. Her face, her temperament, and her personality were not the slightest bit similar to Akiko Tsukino. "Mr. Xia, do you always look at women like this?" Suya felt a little unnatural under Charlotte's gaze. The corners of her mouth curled up slightly, looking a little unhappy. Only then did Charlotte move his gaze away from her chest. He smiled awkwardly. "Well, where does this fork lead to?" Suya said, "It can lead to many places. Most of the forks here are interconnected. Don't walk into these forks. You're not familiar with the environment here, and you'll get lost. Getting lost in these forks is a very dangerous thing. Not long ago, a person died in there. When we found him, his body was already highly decomposed." "I'm just asking casually. I'm not that curious," Charlotte said. "All right, you rest. I'll go talk to Sister Nana for a while." Suya turned around and left. Out of courtesy, Charlotte sent Suya out of the entrance of the karst cave, where he was temporarily staying. After Suya left, he returned to the karst cave. He did not have the ability to awaken his eyes, and only used his normal vision to observe the karst cave. But even with normal vision, his vision was not comparable to that of an ordinary person, not to mention that he had extremely rich experience in espionage. As a result, he quickly found two mini surveillance cameras hidden at the top of the karst cave. The two surveillance cameras happened to cover the entire space of the karst cave, with almost no blind spots. Then he found a surveillance camera hidden in the rock wall in the bathroom. When he found the surveillance camera, he hesitated for a moment before he opened the zipper and pulled out Xiao Lei to pee in a simple squatting toilet. Knowing that someone was watching him, he still did it. The reason was simple. If it was inconvenient, why did he go into the toilet? The scene of Xia Lei peeing appeared in a 3D projection projected by a monitoring terminal. A part of his buttocks, as well as Xia Lei's body parts, were all displayed in the virtual control. It was a 360-degree view of the entire scene. Huang Kai frowned. He thought Xia Lei was inspecting the toilet, but when he thought about how Xia Lei took out that thing to pee, he was obviously agitated. But the next second after they looked away, the corner of their eyes returned to the screen of the surveillance terminal. But in the next second, the two female staff members looked back at the screen of the monitoring terminal from the corner of their eyes. But the next second after they looked away, the two female staff members' eyes returned to the screen of the surveillance terminal. Xia Lei's thing was probably the most perfect thing they had ever seen. It was as white as jade and looked very delicious. What was wrong with Charlotte's thing? As the opposite sex, it was probably the most perfect thing they had ever seen. It was as white as jade and looked very delicious. As the opposite sex, was it wrong for them to look at such a thing? It was a mistake not to look at it. In the 3D projection, Charlotte slowly finished peeing, then turned around and walked out of the bathroom. He lay on the bed and closed his eyes to sleep. He fell asleep as soon as he said he would, and there was no more movement. But even so, Huang Kai still observed for at least 2 minutes before he decided to give up. He said, "Continue to monitor him, and report to me immediately if he does anything unusual." A female staff member said, "Okay, please rest assured, Captain Huang. We will definitely monitor him around the clock and report to you at any time." Huang Kai nodded and then left the surveillance center. A few minutes later, he came to the bottom of the huge cave. There was a huge rock in front of him, but it was also man-made rock. He stayed under the rock for more than 10 seconds and then said, "Huang Kai, password 179564. A blue beam of light fell from the top of his head and finished scanning Huang Kai in the blink of an eye. Then the huge rock suddenly opened, and a metal passage appeared behind the rock. Huang Kai came to the end of the passage. At the end of the passage was a thick, round alloy door with a complicated structure. Huang Kai was scanned again, and after confirming his identity, he opened it. The round alloy door opened, and a strange space appeared. Charlotte really fell asleep. He cleared all the thoughts in his mind and completely relaxed the nerves and muscles of his body, letting his body get a complete rest. This was not a deep sleep, but the most thorough rest and relaxation. In this state, his body could correct the mistakes caused by evolution and go in the right direction. This was very important. The most fundamental reason why people got sick, aged, and died was that free radicals and mistakes were produced in the process of cell division. And these free radicals and mistakes were the culprits of human illness, aging, and death. Women began to age at the age of 21, and men began to age at the age of 24. This was caused by the genes of the human species, and no one could avoid it. Although Charlotte had evolved ahead of time, he could not avoid it, because he was also human. Ordinary people could not change their fate of aging and death from the age of 20, but he could. The power of the brand in his body, as well as the power of the universal brand, was currently correcting the mistakes in his body, clearing free radicals, nourishing his cells, and maintaining them in a near-perfect state. After an unknown amount of time, footsteps came from outside the cave. It was Suya and Kongtu Nana's footsteps. Charlotte recognized them when he heard them. The two women entered his cave. He closed his eyes and continued to pretend to sleep. "Mr. Xiao," Suya's voice, "can we come in?" Charlotte was a little speechless. They had already come in, and yet they still said such things. He opened his eyes and yawned, looking drowsy. "Who is it?" "It's me, Suya, and Sister Nana." Suya walked out from the corner. "Leader Huang asked me to bring you to see the principal." Kongtu Nana also walked out. "Wake up, sleepyhead." The first time I came to the Heavenly Jewel Academy, I was so excited that I couldn't sleep for 2 days. You actually managed to sleep the first time. You're really something. Charlotte got off the bed, putting on his shoes and walking towards the two women. As he walked, he said with a smile, "I'm really sorry, I was just too tired. Besides, there's nothing special about this place. I feel like it's just an ordinary school, so I can't get excited." Kongtu Nana said, "Only people like you would feel that way. All right, you can talk when you get back. Now, I'll bring you to see the principal." Suya said, her tone a little joking. Charlotte followed Suya out of the cave, following a path up the cliff. The path under their feet could definitely be called the Heavenly Road. It was carved out of the cliff, and there was not even a guardrail. The higher they went, the more it hung in the air. By the time they reached the top of the honeycomb, it was almost suspended in the air. Even Charlotte felt guilty walking on such a path, let alone Kongtu Nana. She was obviously very nervous, and although she tried to hide it, Charlotte could still see that her feet were trembling. Charlotte reached out a hand. "Hold my hand." Kongtu Nana hesitated for a moment, but finally grabbed Charlotte's hand. Suya, who was walking in front, looked back and said with a smile, "You still say there's nothing between you two? Sister Nana, how long do you plan to hide it from me?" Charlotte just smiled and did not explain. Kongtu Nana blushed and let go of Charlotte's hand. They continued walking, and soon they reached the top of the honeycomb. At the end of the heavenly road was a wooden door. It looked very ordinary, and there was no device that required a password or a scan. Suya stood in front of the door and knocked. In a very polite tone, she said, "Principal Roland, Commander Kongtu, and Mr. Xiao are here." There was no sound from behind the door. Suya said again, "Principal Roland, Commander Kongtu, and Mr. Xiao are here." There was still no response from behind the door. At this moment, Charlotte's ears suddenly caught a very special sound, which sounded like the sound of an electric motor starting up. His heart thumping. He raised his head and looked around. After confirming that there were no surveillance cameras, he suddenly awakened the ability of his eyes and moved his gaze to the direction of the wooden door. The obstacle in front of him, however, was the wooden door and Suya, who was standing in front of the wooden door and waiting for a response. When he awakened his X-ray ability, Suya was the first obstacle that he could see through. Her clothes instantly disappeared from his field of vision. Her smooth back, plump buttocks, and a pair of legs that weren't very long but were very delicate. The legs were tightly closed, and there was no obvious gap between them. However, the place where the buttocks and thighs met still made his gaze stop for a moment. There seemed to be some kind of energy absorption vortex there, and even the passing gaze would be sucked in. A fragrant back, a slender waist, a perky buttocks, and beautiful legs. These were actually not what attracted Charlotte's attention. What attracted his attention the most was a large tattoo on her slender waist and perky buttocks. It was a circular tattoo. It wasn't tattooed with flowers, birds, ferocious beasts, or lightning skulls, but an emblem. It had complex patterns and runes that no one could understand. These things formed a perfectly round shape that looked like a brand. On this brand, the only thing that Charlotte could understand was the two Chinese characters Zizhu. At this moment, a thought popped up in Charlotte's mind. This tattoo that looks like a brand is the symbol of a branded warrior. It looks very mysterious, and I don't know what story it has. He didn't dwell too much on this question. His gaze went past Suya and entered the wooden door. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.